With thanks to Endurance Chat Media, good evening everybody. It's time for round number 3 of this year's ASR GT3 series. And it's back across the Canadian and United States border we go. The last 2 rounds we've spent on opposite sides of that border. On the eastern side of the country, we're now on the west coast. A bit further north of the what is typically deemed to be the west coast. We're in the state of Oregon, in the northern west coast, at Portland International Raceway. This place has been around since the 60s. It's undergone quite a few changes. It's more famously known for its IndyCar roots, with the Grand Prix of Portland being held here each and every year. But tonight, we've got 2 30-minute sprint races to go around this place, which makes up the 60 minutes of Portland. Flood, good evening.
Evening, Nether. It's good to be back. And good evening, everyone watching at home. Yes, Portland, like a wacky little circuit, 3.1 kilometers. And boy, after running some laps earlier, I am sure glad I'm not a left rear tire around this place, because that side of the car gets absolutely torched. But it's going to be very interesting. The sprint format tonight, it's going to put a lot of pressure on tire management and making sure that you've got enough to fight with at the end, but we shouldn't see any problems with fuel, and that means that we're going to be seeing all of our 15 car grid tonight going at its absolute maximum throughout this evening. Nether.
Yeah, that is what we look forward to with these sprint rounds. There's no mandatory pit stops, so you have got to make sure the fuel's going to last. You've still got to do your calculations. You can't just blaze along and go along at 110% all the time. You have got to be a little bit careful, especially toward the back end of the race, but there has been a few BOP changes that have come into effect between this year and last year, and also between rounds 1 and 2 this year, there was a couple of small changes as well. But you're right, the left rear tyre is going to cop a real pounding around here. It's a clockwise circuit, and a number of the left-handers are long loaded corners. You'll see when we look at our track map, turns 4 and 5, very, very long loaded corners. There's some high speed parts. The last couple of corners really do put a fair bit of pressure on that left rear tyre. Unfortunately, it's just the two of us tonight. It looks like Josh Bagsy Bags unfortunately been tied up with some work commitments, which does happen every now and again, but we look forward to seeing him hopefully in a couple of weeks when we go to Campo Grande down in the southern area of Brazil. And then, of course, we've got Hockenheimring and Spa-Francorchamps to go to round out the calendar for the first half of the year. Let's have a look at this quirky little track, actually, because a lot of people probably haven't seen it before. So thanks to Google Earth Studio, let's go on over to the western side of the United States. Not too far away from the border, just the only state that's north of here is the state of Washington. And this place flood built on the old ruins of the flooded out city of Vanport, which had flooded, or was actually flooded out on Memorial Day weekend all the way back in 1948. May 30th, 1948. There was a big 10-foot high wall of water rushed in and basically killed 15 people and left the city in ruins. And from there, from the Phoenix, I guess, rose this little racetrack in the 60s. It's had a fair bit of change since then, most notably around the front straight. In recent times, going from being basically a front drag strip straight to have a little hump in the straight, now to have this really awkward S-bend in the straight. Apart from that, it is quite a narrow track as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we're watching the background filter through the end of the first sector, we get to the only the only significant left-hander on the track. It's a little bit of a rise here as well, but it's really this sort of back section is quite narrow and quite difficult to pass in, and with this long run now down next to the lake that's just on the right hand side, it might seem like a bit of a passing opportunity, but with the little kink to the left before the entry to the final complex of corners, you've got to be all the way up alongside before you can even think about making a pass. Very difficult section here, trying to balance the flow, the stability of the car, and the pace through that section before launching it back onto the main straight. And I reckon we're going to see a lot of passes here at turn 1, making that run off of turn 11, and maybe even 1 or 2 cheeky moves down at turn 4 if you can get off this little chicane feature really, really nicely. What I'm sure we're going to see, though, is we're going to see some tire degradation on that left-hand side, and we're going to see a few guys maybe overstep the boundaries and spin up that rear wheel a little too much, and that might come back to bite them rather at the very tail end of these 30-minute races.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that one. Throttle application out of some of the slower corners is going to be where a lot of work's going to have to be done. So that opening chicane, the power out of turn 2 is going to be the big one. And the other one there, turn 7, which is at the very top end of the circuit, which sort of brings you onto that long, I guess you can call it the back straight. I think someone else who I've commentated before calls them a curve straight. That'd be Hans Brunswick. Yeah. Essentially, that's what it is. It is a straight, but it's got a curve in it. It doesn't really count as any corners. That last little complex of corners, I wouldn't be surprised to see somebody have a go into that part of the course at some point tonight and not have it come off.
Oh, absolutely. It's enticing because if you get the run alongside someone, you really want to throw it down in there, but it narrows up so quickly, and because you have that little left kink before that double apex right-hander to finish off the lap, it really closes the door a lot faster than you expect it to. So, and that corner itself is actually not trivial either. It's quite a application on the brakes, and you got to control the car over the curb, and it's not as easy as it looks on a track map. So, someone's going to come unstuck there tonight, I'm sure of it, because boy howdy, I did plenty in practice.
Yeah, I've seen a few people do it as well. I was almost thinking that it might be better for people to try and just follow through that last little kink and then maybe have a go into the last corner. But even that's fraught with danger because it's still quite narrow and it doesn't open up, and you don't really get any sort of a chance to get side by side with another car until you're actually on the front straight. So really the last corner is not even a place to probably pass. I'm with you. I think most of the passing tonight I expect to see happen up into turn 1 and 2. Maybe a sneaky one into turn 4 and 5 if you're close enough out of the chicane and don't get a pass done there. Maybe up into turn 7 as well if you are close enough to hang through the very sort of medium speed S's going through turns 5, 6 and then on to 7. Maybe might be able to send one up the inside there.
Yeah, and the thing is with those medium speed corners in the first sector that go into that sort of second sector loop that takes you onto the back straight is that because they're so long and so loaded, you really increase the temperature on the left side of the car. So car becomes sort of unbalanced and unstable. And so that little hump, even between turns 6 and 7, that takes you from the left-hander back into the right-hander, it makes the whole section a lot more difficult because the tires are unbalanced because of the temperature, and you might be fading grip in later in the stint. So being able to manage all these little things as the sprint goes on is going to be paramount to making sure that you're in a good position at the end of the race.
Spot on. And not only that, it's 2 races tonight, so that means there's also 2 sets of qualifying. So the session that we're about to go into in the next few minutes is indeed qualifying for race number 1, which will follow immediately. Then we'll have a short little break and grab the drivers for a few little interviews, and then we'll do it all over again. There'll be a second qualifying session followed by a second race session, and it looks like, Flood, here we go for qualifying number 1. Now, the one thing that I have noticed is there is no pit lane blend line here, so you could just saw Termo and who's that behind him? I think that's Lockie Burt. They just shot straight across all the way to the left-hand side of the track as soon as they came out over the dotted line, and then opened it up for turn 1, which they really didn't need to do because it's an outlap, but another one of those little quirks about this circuit.
Good thing that we're not using this for a endurance-focused round with compulsory pit stops then.
Yeah, that's another good point, I think, to make as well, isn't it? A couple more drivers starting to leave the lane. There's Lewis Wedding in the Lewis Sim Sport Porsche. He's coming out about 10th or so in the order. He currently sits second in the point standings overall, which we'll have a look at between sessions so you can see where everybody is at. Important thing, I think, coming into tonight as well, Flood, we learned a little bit of information just in the off-air discussions. This man, current points leader, also in the Lewis Sim Sport Porsche, he's got the C word tonight.
Yeah, unfortunate for Luke Rosella. He missed yesterday's ASC event because he was suffering, and it looks like tonight he might be suffering a little less. Sorry to hear that Luke Rosella has the Rona, and hopefully he's clearly well enough to race tonight, and hopefully he doesn't get hit too hard and is able to recover well, because you never want to wish, well, from experience, it's not a fun time. So I'm glad that he's at least well enough to race tonight.
Yeah, he's not the first person in the ASR community that's ended up with COVID. You just said yourself, you've had it as well. And I do recall last year, Orjit Mishra missed a couple of supercars rounds, the same reason as well. And of course, being over in India for Orjit Mishra, it's a little bit of a different beast. I mean, you'd be suffering a lot, not only with the the temperature and all those things that COVID brings along with you, depending how hard it hits you, but also, I guess, over there, the actual weather conditions as well probably is a bit of a double whammy.
Yeah, it would not be a pleasant time. I can certainly say that much for Ujit.
All right, so first times are starting to come in. Termo's posted a 1 minute 8.8. Lockie Burke just 2 1/4 tenths behind. Steve Bolger on the road behind Berkey goes to the top, 108.1. And already not that far away from some of the best times we've seen. Practice we saw times in the high 107s.
Speaking of a high 107, that's where Luke Rosella's found himself now, a 107.7, which is his best time of the evening, in fact.
Yeah, his best time of the weekend so far as well. He's about a half a tenth shy of the best time we've seen anybody do, which has actually gone to Steve Bolger throughout the week so far, 107.697. I think that was actually set just prior to practice closing. He was at the top of the standings for a little while throughout the course of the weekend, and he's up that pointy end again as Wedding now goes P3. Good time so far, Christian Alvarez, one of our international competitors. He's actually posted a fairly handsome 108.9 and probably got a little bit of improvement there. His first sector time was actually pretty good. there's actually a PB for him. What does he look like on this one? Is he improving? Still improving. He's found a little bit less time, so he's gone backwards in the second sector, but still on track. This would move him ahead of Termo if he can hold this to the line in the only Lamborghini in the field so far. Was Felix Kim's has got, yeah, Felix Kim's has got the other one, and he does improve. Actually, found a bit more time as well. So, actually, almost doubled what he was up at Sector 2 by the time he got to Sector 3's control line or control point, which is start-finish line.
While you're watching Christian Alvarez, Steve Bolger managed to improve his lap time to 107.8, but so did Luke Rosella, who's now on a 107.5 and improving again through the first sector, although this time both of them have traffic. Rosella has the Honda NSX in the form of, I think that's Braxton Stancliffe just ahead of him.
Correct.
And Steve Bolger has one of the Aston Martins, I think Steve Warwick, for trouble, and in fact Bolger's run wide at the final corner and won't be improving on this lap.
Rosella's getting a benefit here too, Flood. He's getting a massive benefit by the toe from Braxton Stancliffe, who's actually gone wide at the final corner. That'll help Rosella. He actually had found...
To the pits.
Yeah, he's gone to the pits. Okay, well that's a bit of an interesting one, because he was 2/10 up at second sector split, but maybe the run through the last couple of corners was what undid him there.
Yeah, it was one of those things like you get the toe, the benefit of the toe through the back straight or in the faster sections, but as soon as you get to the corners, it was almost as if Luke ran out of room through, much like it looks like Lewis Wedding was about to there, until Cracker bowled himself a wide and allowed Wedding through.
Well, speaking of Lewis Wedding, he's on his way to the start-finish line right now. And I haven't seen what he's up to on this lap. It doesn't look like he's improving much. He improved by a little bit. It looks like most of that improvement came in the last sector, I think. So that puts him onto provisional front row.
This for a stat. Both Lewis Wedding and Luke Rosella have identical sector times for the middle sector as the purple sector time, 21.704.
That's something I've never seen before, actually. I mean, we've seen the same times posted over the course of a lap, with differing sectors, but I've never ever seen an identical middle sector.
And purple as well for both of them.
Yeah, correct. Well, essentially that is a purple sector, isn't it? As Justin Cecil goes into the top 10 in his, I think this might be his first hit out actually, in the Vodafone NSX. Maybe he's done another round, I can't remember off the top of my head. He may have done the opening round there as well. The Wedding was up at the first sector split, not up at the second sector split, but I mean, mind you, he's only got about 10th and a half until he actually gets to Rosella's time anyway. We'll stay with Justin Cecil into first sector and actually found a little bit more time as well. So everybody's finding some improvements as the session drags on, which is 15 minutes long. And we're getting to the half distance mark. This is one of the last two men yet to post a lap time. Phil Boat in the Mercedes-Benz goes to 9th. That knocks Justin Cecil out of the top 10. And then the next one we're looking to see is Will Devonish. Now he's gone and acquired a drive in Brian Walsh's Ferrari. We've got Glenn Miles is back this week, so it's good to have Glenn back in the field. So the pink Ferrari back in its owner's hands. And Walsh is missing his second round out of 3.
Yeah, unfortunate for Walshy. I think he said that he was still just a little too ill to compete, or he's not had the computer troubles sorted yet. One of the two. It is one of the two. Equally as likely. So I'm sure he's following on the live chat, and if he is following on the live chat, Walshy, make sure you drop us a message and say hello. But his car is in the hands of Will Devonish, and he's just about to come to the line to start his first flying lap.
Easy on board from Will Devonish. He'll be the last man to post a time. Where's he at the anchors? Just on the 400 feet to go mark. And in actual fact, missed the apex at turn 1. Clouts that inside curve at turn 2. Turn 3 is an inconsequential corner. It pretty much is there, but you don't need to pay much attention to it. Just hold your foot flat to the throttle. And here's the double apex of 4 and 5. Leaning on that left tyre, and now into 6, which uses the right side. Already a second down at the first sector split. Oh, snap! Car wanted to get away from him there before on the change of direction, coming up the hill, out of 6 into 7. now through 8, and now you can take a little bit of a breath, just pause, and just keep the car going the right direction. Second sector split comes up now. Now this really fast left and right chicane. Flick over to the left, use a ton of curb. Flick to the right, same again. Don't go too wide because you... Oh, and he's in the marbles.
He missed the braking zone. The curb unsettles the car so much that by the time he'd actually gathered it back up, he was already too deep into the braking zone and he was off the circuit before he knew it. Bit of a frantic lap for Wills, but let's see if he can find some way of getting some pace into that machine. While he was doing that, Luke Rosella went fastest again with a 107.444, which is then eclipsed to do a 107.207. So he is rolling down the times at the minute, and there's still 5 minutes left in this session. He could go into the 106s.
Yeah, very possibly. He could go into the 6s. He could also just opt to park it up, I think, for the minute as well.
I heard a shriek of tyre in the background. I think that was Will Devonish again trying to wrangle that Ferrari through the second sector.
Yeah, it was. He was coming across, actually Lewis Wedding was about to come across him just on the run through here. You can see, we're watching it from Wedding's onboard. There was a screech of tyres because there was Braxton Stancliffe there. I think it was also, no, sorry, Nathan Higginson. Sorry, I do apologise. Off the circuit between 3 and 4. And then there goes Wilbert, big screech of tyres. And Wedding just kept his foot in it, I think. And there wasn't really much that he had to really worry about.
Another scrubbed lap for Will. Let's see if he can find a lap time somewhere. Somewhere I'd like to see a positive lap time for him. As we're watching Nathan Higginson and Steve Bolger get a little close for comfort. I think he goes looking to get a little bit of a tow, a little bit of guidance from the man that currently sits in third position in this qualifying session.
It'll be more guidance, I think, about what line to take and where to go. Just make sure he doesn't run into the back of him. That's the only thing I think he needs to do here. Now, the tow will be helpful there because he lost a little bit of track distance to the rear of Bolger's car because he made a mistake at the chicane. So I think now it's just a case of just follow what Bolger does. Oh, Bolger's gone. No, Bolger's gone. There he goes. He's like, oh, well, no, I'm not giving you a tow. Bugger off. You're on your own.
Yeah, he just got a little too far to the left there and got over the curb. And when he tried to brake, the car wouldn't respond and turn in. So not ideal for Bolger, but he's got another few laps to get a lap in. And for Nathan Higginson, he's been released into the wild blue yonder, or the wild green yonder in Portland. And let's see how he's going. He's up by a 10th on his PB to the second sector mark.
Now, this will move him ahead of Philip Boak if he can keep it going. Go close to moving him. Yeah, he'll go close to moving him ahead of Steve Warwick. He's now got a tow from another Ferrari. And, yep, he's using it. And what does he end up with? He ends up with... Oh, he fit 2 extra tenths. That tow was worth a lot.
And he was very settled through that left-right little kink section as well. So, just goes to show, he gained 4 tenths on that lap. He's vaulted from 9th place up into 5th. That's how close the mid-pack is in this season at the moment. So, well done from Nathan Higginson. And he's going to be looking over his shoulder now at the likes of Lockie Burke, who's on a PB, a 10th up on his personal best. Christian Alvarez almost on his PB. Steve Warwick just coming through the first sector. Phil Boak about to finish his lap.
Here's Lockie Burke, who you just mentioned as well, coming down to the last sequence of corners. The Lucid Sport Porsche in the background there gets out the way, but Burke's abandoned this lap. He's miles off his own PB, so he's probably had a little mistake somewhere, but he's got 2.5 minutes or better part of. He'll get 2 more flying laps in onto the drag strip front straight. That's the other part of this circuit that a lot of people don't realise actually exists. The front straight is actually a drag strip. It continues on there just where the traffic cones are.
Sorry to interrupt you now though. Christian Alvarez has just popped in a brand new lap time, a 1:08.3, and he's jumped ahead now of Nathan Higginson. So Alvarez into 5th.
There you go.
Just behind Termo, as we've got a yellow flag in turn 4.
Yeah, we're keeping an eye out here, and Lockie Burke's just cleared it. Actually, it's for Cracker. Christian Alvarez has just gone past the recovering Lexus RCF that was out there. And Alvarez has gone faster again. He's actually found a very, very small amount of time in Sector 1. So he might potentially threaten the second row here. No, he's gone hit the grass there. So that'll be the end of that. Got a bit too greedy on the exit of 7 and 8. And he's now going to bleed some time down this straight, but he will get one more roll of the dice at it. Now, who else is out there? There's nobody out there that's of real... Actually, Termo's parked up in the lane. I was about to say, the real significant ones I'm looking at is Termo. He's fourth. He's in the lane. Braxton Stancliffe is just leaving the lane now, but I don't think he's going to get around in time for another lap.
No, not at all.
And Glenn Miles and Will Devonish, they're in the lane as well, so they're done too, but they are right down the back, both the Playboy Racing Ferraris.
Steve Bolger's got one more attempt at it. He's just come through the main straight. On the next episode of Luke Watch, we'll see him set a 107.1. So he's improved again, and he's just, I think, half a tenth away at the second sector. So he might get to the line and have another crack at it. So we'll see what happens to the Lewis Sim Sport battle. In fact, Lewis Wedding is up on his PB through Sector 1 on this lap. But Steve Bolger, not so. He's half a second down. So Bolger's probably not going to improve from there. Let's see, as we've got 15 seconds left in the session. He goes across the line to set his last, to start his last lap, rather. Lockie Burke's thrown it away. He's done. Steve Warwick is on a lap. Who else is around? Cracker is about to improve, it looks. We've just hit the timer.
Yep, timer's gone 0. So Wedding now across the line, and no improvement from him. There goes Christian Alvarez. He didn't make an improvement. So too the was that Cracker in the back there, and one of the cars in the middle there, I think, was the which one was that? Looking for, I think it might have been Steve Warwick went through there. I know Lockie Burke, sorry, he went through. Steve Warwick's coming to the line now behind Justin Cecil. Not a lot of change going on here. I think everybody has sort of done their best laps to this point.
And Luke Rosella has given it away. I think the only person on a lap at the moment is Phil Boak and
Rhodey as well.
Rhodey.
Yeah, so Rhodey's actually up on a PB here. And Phil Boak is in 7th place at the moment, away. And he's a couple of tenths behind. You'll probably just see him just pop into shot. There he is. And Boak, I think, is pulling the trigger, and probably pulling the pin, rather. He's abandoning this one. And Rhodey to the line. Time improvement, no position improvement.
Well done to Rhodey. Gets a little bit of airtime at the end, but in the end it was Luke Rosella who set a 107.111 to take pole position, almost into the sixes. We'll see if that comes to fruition in the second qualifying today. Ahead of his teammate Lewis Wedding, and then Steve Bolger in third, Termo in fourth, a pair of the Gravel Rash Racing McLarens. Looking out the second row. Christian Alvarez, really impressive position in 5th place. Nathan Higginson finds his way into 6th after fighting his way through that session. Well done, Nathan. Phil Boak, Lockie Burke, Steve Warwick, Cameron Parrott. We didn't really talk too much about Cameron in the Audi, but he rounds out the top 10. Braxton Stancliffe, Justin Cecil, the pair of Acuras through row 6. Cracker and Rhodey, the pair of Lexuses on row 7. And Glenn Miles and Will Devonish, the pair of Ferraris on row 8.
There you
it's
go.
been Noah's Ark out there.
Yeah, 2x2, Noah's Ark indeed. We'll wait to see the warm-up sessions about to get underway here, but they will be doing the driver's briefing, and that does give us a little bit of time to have a look at the point standings as they sit right now. So 2 rounds out of 6 completed, and of course there are 8 races in the season because there's 2 sprint rounds. Of course, there's 2 races per sprint night, of which tonight is 1. And the points gap there at the top, Luke Rosella, Flood, he has a 19-point buffer as it stands right now.
And that's because of 2 perfect races so far at Watkins Glen and at Montreal over his teammate and Brenton Foley. They're very closely matched. The pair of 3rd places for Foley are almost exactly the same amount of points as the 2nd and 4th for Lewis Wedding. We saw Wedding have that moment last time out at Montreal, which kind of dropped him down the order that he had to fight back from. Those 3 have separated themselves out from the rest of the field. Phil Boak in a 4th place, possibly looking... Is Boakey with us tonight? Yes, he is. So
he is.
We'll hopefully see Boak jump up the order. In fact, we're missing Foley, which is going to play havoc in his run for the championship. Noah Tara missing tonight. Termo we have. So he will probably jump up a few positions, you'd hope. Cameron Parrott, Steve Warwick, Tim Redmond. Unfortunately, no Tim Redmond tonight, so we'll see him drop away. And it surprises me that Steve Bolger is down in 12th place. Did he miss the last round, or did he just have a shocker?
No, he had a woeful round. remember there was, I think, he had a disconnect in one of the races, I believe, as well, and that's left him sort of
Yeah.
languishing down the order. I believe he had a fairly good round at one of the two rounds that have just gone. I'm just trying to remember. I'm pretty sure it was the last round at Montreal, where we had all sorts of disconnect issues for him, and I think one or two others had some dramas too, and he didn't finish. So all of his points have come from the opening round.
Yeah, okay. So a little bit of a struggle for him. Hopefully, he has a more settled second half of the season. But really, you've got to say it's going to be from the top three. And if Foley's not here tonight, then that removes one of the competitors from that top three already.
Yeah, it does. And I know the reasons why Tim Redmond and Brenton Foley are not here. Tim Redmond with some work commitments that have to take place tomorrow. And Brenton Foley, believe it or not, has actually got parent-teacher interviews because he is a teacher in real life. So he's got to do the hard slog, sit there behind the desk and tell parents that their son or daughter has been good or bad or indifferent or whatever. So he'll miss this one. Unfortunately for him, there are no drop rounds in the GT3 series, unlike the Supercars series this year, which for the first time has a drop round. You can't throw your worst round away in this one. So if he's going to actually have any chance of competing for the top three, he's going to have to do it on track over the course of the remaining 3 rounds.
Yes, indeed. And it's kind of interesting how sort of especially in the top four, but also throughout the grid, made mention that it feels a bit Noah's Ark at the moment. You've got the two Loose Sim Sport Porsches at the front, but then the two Gravel Rash Racing McLarens in second and third and fourth rather. In the championship, it's the two PBF Race Engineering Mercedes. Of course, that's going to get shaken up with one of them not here tonight. But it's interesting to me that it's. I'm not sure if it's the BOP playing a big role in this, or if everyone's just kind of matched with drivers. Teamed up with drivers that are really evenly matched. But it's not something that I've really seen before, where the teammates are basically on top of each other when it comes to the race positions and the championship positions. Nether.
Yeah, I haven't seen this for a little while actually. The only other thing that I could think of, like back in the day, that springs to mind is maybe in one of the early rounds of Supercars in 2019. At the top of the standings, it was Phil Boak and Brenton Foley. They were sort of running out in front, and it was Foley who ran away with that championship in 2019. Eventually, actually had to overhaul his teammate after having a bit of a poor round at one point earlier on in the year. But for most of the season, they were top two, and that's as far back as I can remember there ever being one. Since then, very, very rare to see it. And, not only that, to have two sets of teammates at the tops of the standings there. So Rosella and Wedding, followed by Foley and Boak. And then after round one, it was actually the two Gravel Rash Racing McLarens were 5th and 6th in Termo and Steve Bolger. So that's how the lay of the land was then. And again, almost unheard of to have teammates 2 by 2 by 2.
Yeah, it's very interesting. As I said, I wonder if it's partly induced the balanced performance. We've got the two rear engine, rear wheel drive machines, and the two front engine cars in second in third and fourth rather, and then the two mid rear turbo cars in fifth and sixth after that first round. So I wonder if the BOP maybe has a factor into that, and that there has been adjustments since, so we might not see that as much anymore. But it was certainly just an interesting little point that I wanted to pick out there.
Yeah, agree. And I know there's been a little bit of talk during the week about how some of the BOP has actually been sitting, that they may need some further adjustments, but we'll have to take a bit of, I guess, a look under advisement at how that actually is structured, whether or not they need to make some of the changes. The drama, I think, last year was in order to basically get some of the cars to be competitive, they had to have their next rung to make them drivable to be competing in terms of top line speed and things like that. A lot of it was also trying to also balance it out around making sure that fuel mileage was a consideration. So front engine cars blowing through fuel a little bit quicker rather than more economic cars. It's just so there was I guess, upside and downsides to each car or car group that could be picked, and in the same fashion they're looking to do the same thing. Now, I do tell a little white lie here, because it looks like maybe Brenton Foley has actually tried to jump into the server while the briefing is on. So maybe the parent-teacher interviews have finished a little bit early, and he's going to come and race, but he's going to be off the back. So we're going to an interesting sort of little race here to see one of the fast guys come all the way through the field, if that's the case.
Well, it could be a repeat of what we saw at Montreal with Tim Redmond, Will Devonish, and Lewis Wedding firing their way through the field. You know, imagine Brenton Foley and Will Devonish from the back of the field making their way through through the race. So it's gonna be fascinating to watch. I wonder how much practice Will has done. It didn't look to me like he had that car dialed in or you know, it's set up, or you know, he knew the lay of the land at all. So maybe as the night goes on, he might find a bit more pace across the lap. In fact, Brenton Foley saying in the live chat that he doesn't have the track. So
he should have the track, because it was actually in the original pack when it was downloaded at the very beginning. So the first couple of circuits were actually in the right pack. So that's an interesting one for Brenton Foley. He'll have to. Maybe he accidentally deleted it, I'm not sure. He'll have to go and double check that one, but it was definitely part of the original download bundle. So
absolutely.
Something's gone quite wrong there. What we're going to do, Flood, we're going to do something a little bit different while we have a bit of time up our sleeve. Actually, there are a couple of cars look like they're just starting to come out for practice, or for warm-up rather, while the driver's briefing is just concluding. And actually, who's out at the moment? Actually, it's Cracker that's out there at the moment. I was about to say what I was going to do is pause the camera at a couple of spots and let's take a bit of a look. So what we'll do here is we'll zoom out and we'll have a look at this turn 1, 2 and 3 complex. So we'll bring our camera up on high, and you can see here. So there's the drag strip front straight, and literally in real life it is a drag strip. They do drag racing here. You can see here, tight apex at turn 1, and then a little bit more wider at turn 2. And then as we swing our camera down towards here, then you see turn 3, which effectively doesn't really exist. And then we're on to turn 4 and 5 through there, and then turn 6, the left-hander, and then up to turn 7 behind the trees. Now, Flood, having a look at this turn 1 and 2 complex in particular, my wording or my mind says to me that there's trouble written all over here on lap 1.
Oh, absolutely on lap 1, no doubt about it. And I think the brake markers on the left-hand side, we made mention when we were watching Will Devenish's lap. He broke at the 400 foot mark. That's already too late. It kind of fools you into thinking that that's an acceptable point to brake, but it really isn't. So come lap 1, we're going to see quite a compression of the field into that set of corners. You can actually take the first section a lot wider than you expect, but you really want to use as much curb as you can in that left-hander there, because it is one of the two. Well, yeah, really the only two left-handers on the track, so it doesn't really matter if you use a lot of tyre or anything like that. In fact, we're just watching Justin Cecil. It's probably a little too late on that first apex. You really want to come across as sharp as you can on that first apex, so that way you can run over the curb on the left-hand side and try and shoot your way out through turn 3 into the more flowing 4, 5, 6 section. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see a sort of Monza-esque style first corner here, at least for the first lap.
Yeah, I would agree. And the other one we were referring to a little bit earlier is this one. So this is the last couple of corners on the circuit. So that very, very fast back straight just sort of comes right around the back side of the lake. As you can see, here comes Justin Cecil right now. And then the left over right, fast chicane. It's really not even a chicane. It's really just an S-bend. He's actually done that quite well. Car got a little bit tail happy there. And then as we swing our camera around again, there's really long loaded section. It really almost looks like it's a one-line groove. You can see by just where the tyre marks are, it's a one-line groove, and it really doesn't open up until you get to about 90% of the way through the corner, where you can pretty much plant your foot and then just use all that exit space onto the front straight, and away you go. So there really is no passing, I would say, Flood, through this part of the course. It's really follow your person in front of you as much as you can and as closely as you can, and then set it up for turn 1, because if you can get a good run out of here, maybe beat your opponent to the gas pedal, get a nice little bit of a draft going on, you'll have a stab down into turn 1 quite comfortably. But the hard part then is, as you said, you've got to get it stopped.
Yeah, absolutely. It kind of shadows another Monza comparison with the Parabolica. That's the sort of profile of this last corner, but you're approaching it at a much slower speed because of that little S bend, which is, it doesn't look like much, but it's actually quite a lot more difficult than it looks on the track map. I actually found that because you're approaching that final corner at such a low speed in comparison to the rest of the lap, you can actually bring up the throttle quite a bit earlier than you expect. And so because you're basically running onto the drag strip there, you've got a lot of road on your outside as Phil Boak tries to use a bit more road than the road that is available there.
I wouldn't be surprised if he actually got upset by Brent Foley entering the server actually there, because you could see on our screen there was a little bit of a lag moment, and that was when Foley joined.
And so Foley's in, fantastic. So we'll have, does that make it 17 cars there for the first race tonight?
Yeah, 17.
Brilliant. That's what we love to see. We love to see these larger grids as the clock has run out on this warm-up session, and soon we should be going to racing.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. We're probably going to get around about 25 to 28 laps is probably the window for how many laps we will get tonight. And just judging by the times, if everybody's sort of doing race paces in the 8s, 9s and 10s, that probably seems to be fairly accurate. I'm noticing that Rhodey's actually was doing a test pit stop there. I don't know why you'd need to do that for a sprint round unless you got damage, but anyway.
Maybe he has got damage. Maybe he's anticipating taking some damage throughout the race. I hope he's not, because even for Rhodey, that would be a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, I mean, the running joke tonight was that whoever was faster than Nathan Higginson during practice, that's where the running joke was at. And one stage, Glenn Miles was actually faster.
At one stage, I was faster.
At one stage, you were faster as well, yes. I know you're accustomed to jumping in and having a couple of laps before the race night actually goes. And actually, you were champing at the bit even before the server was up. I mean, nobody was on it. The server went down, like, yeah, okay, we'll just put it up normally. And yes, you were right. You were first in there.
There was a reason for that. So we may have made mention last time out that I ran into some pretty significant computer issues, and so I was testing my install. I basically, reinstalled AMS, installed all the mods and everything, and I was just all sat back with a, chalky milk in my hand, ready to just make sure that everything was fine, and the server wasn't even up. So that was my explanation for chomping at the bit.
Yes.
And I did want to run a few laps because Portland, I've never seen the track before. I'm not a big fan of IndyCar, so I haven't really followed it at all before. So this is entirely new track for me, and it's gonna be a weird one.
It's the third consecutive track on the calendar this year, and there's actually 4 of them consecutive this year on the GT3 calendar that we have never ever been to. So there's new track records to be set. So the same thing was Montreal last round. Same thing with the round before that, the 70-minute at the Watkins Glen short circuit, because we've done the long circuit before. We did that last year. Sorry, not last year.
2 years ago.
The year before. In 2020, we did that in the World Series. And we were there for the first time, but that was the first time on the much shorter layout. First time here, first time coming up at Campo Grande in 2 weeks, and then we get back to a place we've actually been to before, the Hockenheim Ring, and then Spa. But of course, the track for Spa this year is going to be a little bit different compared to years gone past. So I think we'll have to have a look and see how the track records hold up versus the old track and the new track.
Yes, those little adjustments to Spa will be very interesting. They will get their first run out in a proper race, in a real-world race, this weekend in the WEC 6 Hours to Spa-Francorchamps. So that'll be fun. That's on a Saturday if you want to watch some endurance racing, because we are, of course, supported by Endurance Chat here, which is the podcast that I am very heavily involved in. And if there's any opportunity for me to spruik endurance racing at you, boy, I'm going to take it.
Yeah, of course. And we also should mention you're going to be up at the Bathurst 12 hour in a couple of weeks as well, which is a very, very great event. I mean, this year it's going to be a little bit of a different look and feel with a few less cars there, but nonetheless, looking forward to seeing how that unfolds in a week and a half. The grid.
It is Luke Rosella and Lewis Redding for Loose Sim Sport leading us off from the front row. Once again, Luke Rosella setting a 107.1 to be half a second up on his teammate in qualifying. Next row is an all Gravel Rash Racing row 2. Steve Bolger from Termo to put the McLarens on row 2. Christian Alvarez leads out row 3 ahead of Nathan Higginson. We made mention 6th place, a great qualifying result for Higo. Phil Boak will start from 7th place. He has Lockie Burke for company on row 4 and Steve Warwick for company just behind him. So the three of the front-engined cars in a row there with the Aston Martins and the Mercedes. Cameron Parrott rounds out the top 10, the Maple Leaf Sim Sport Audi. And then we have the pair of Acuras, Braxton Stancliffe from 11th and Justin Cecil in 12th place. Cracker and Rody take row 7 in the PBF I'm not even going to bother with that one. The pair of Lexuses, the Lexi, and then a pair of Ferraris off the back row of the grid. Glenn Miles in 15th, Will Devnish in 16th, and Brenton Foley starting from the pit lane, probably wisely, considering he's just said he hasn't done a single lap of this track at all yet. The safety car will bring them around onto the main straight. The two Porsches will lead us down the drag strip. Nether, who's going to win the drag race into turn 1?
Well, we're about to find out as soon as the green flag drops. I've just noticed the two Ferraris are just lagging back a little bit off the back of the pack. They have caught up now as the field compresses and awaits the green flag. We are under green here and just waiting for the control line. Rosella's prerogative to go, and he goes now and just fractionally gets the jump over his teammate, immediately comes across to cover, takes a different line and just holds his station through the opening couple of corners. Looks like everything's going according to plan a bit further back. Everybody looks like they've gotten through the opening couple of corners. Fantastic to see. So turn 1, which we suspected was going to be a bit of a trouble spot, hasn't become a bit of trouble so far, but we have got a car off, and it's Cam Parrott. He has gone skating on the grass.
I missed that one from my view, but it's not. It's unfortunate for Parrott. It was just trying to see what's happened to him. Too far back from my replay to see. It looks like as well Phil Boak's had an issue. He's dropped down to the back of the field. Let's have a look at this replay for Cameron Parrott. It looks like just coming out of turn 3, Boak went to the inside. Parrott, was there a touch?
No,
he just went wide.
Went wide, I think, maybe trying to avoid potentially running into Boak there, and has unfortunately done that to himself. Just didn't push the pedal on the left hard enough.
A few movers and shakers as we finish this first lap. Nathan Higginson is jumped up to 5th. Lockie Burke jumped up to 6th place, so he got a good jump around Christian Alvarez and Cameron Parrott, it looks like. Steve Warwick and Braxton Stancliffe up 2 spots. Justin Cecil up 2 spots. Rhodey's managed to pass Cracker in that battle between the two Lexuses, as Glenn Miles just ran a little wide at turn 1. And in fact, Brenton Foley's gone into the pits, into the garage rather. So Foley's already out of it at the first, not even in the first lap.
Yeah, he didn't even make a lap, so he's completely out of this one. So maybe a bit of a terminal failure of some nature there for Brenton Foley. He'll have to gather himself up. He's got another qualifying session to run in about 40 minutes or so. And here we go. We can see here, he's actually got, actually couldn't turn the pit limiter off, so he's had some dramas with the setup. So I was right. So it was a failure of some nature. It's not like the Andy Suchek and bumping the pit limit, bumping the ignition. I think a couple of years ago there was a 2019 Bathurst 12 hour. I think Stairs and Xeris and all the guys I was up there with there that weekend remember that one. I think Xeris and myself and Diesamaj was sitting at a bar was at the Ridges, which is on the approach to the last corner, and we were watching on the screen. Our jaws just dropped and hit the floor. We couldn't believe that happened for a second time.
It was a second time as well, as we just saw a bit of a compression of the field there. Nathan Higginson and Lockie Burke having to take to the inside of the chicane to avoid each other. Yeah, the fact that it happened twice as well was quite jarring, and he was very well torn up by that in the aftermath. This is a willing little battle pack now, isn't it? Higginson, Lockie Burke, Christian Alvarez, and Steve Warwick. Very closely matched. It doesn't look like necessarily Higginson's holding them all up. It just looks like they're all just evenly matched on pace at the moment. So we're right on board with Steve Warwick at the tail end of this group.
Yeah, just sizing each other up a little bit, I think, in a minute, figuring out where everybody's stronger and weaker. And as the race comes on, they'll probably decide where they want to make the move. Little lock up there from Lamborghini. Warwick carried so much more speed through the chicane. And Higginson had gone wide. Burke had gone even wider.
And that's actually going to drop Burke out of the back of this battle. Alvarez and Higo are going to go side by side down the main straight. There's just a little bit of an overlap as they're coming into the braking zone. Alvarez hard on the anchors, has the inside line. There's a little bit of a touch as Higo tries to do the crisscross, and Alvarez is going to pop out the other side ahead. Higo's actually been compromised.
Warwick!
He's off. He's going to go straight back across the circuit. Oh, just managed to stop that car. There was just a little bit of contact on the apex of turn 3, and that was enough to send the Aston Martin into a spin and off track.
Yeah, perfect angle from that with the helicopter cam. That was a spot-on shot there to illustrate what was happening. A little bit of a look at that one on the replay. Unfortunate for Steve Warwick. He was in the right spot for this one. He was right there in the zone, and you can see actually just a little bit of contact. Just the hole may have just been fractionally big enough, but it's like an open door. You've got to take those chances. You've got to walk through them when they are there. But he unfortunately just got a little bit of that inconsequential curb, and that was it.
Yeah, that was it. Now he's now down into, whereabouts is he? He's in 15th place with Cameron Parrott just ahead of him now.
Now this battle's resuming here as well.
And speaking of Cameron Parrott, sorry, Nether, actually we were watching Nathan Higginson and Christian Alvarez.
There was some contact there, and Alvarez had to take to the concrete runoff area on the inside of the opening couple of corners there.
So we might see this battle pack come back together as Lockie Burke's now on the tail of Alvarez. I just saw, in my view, Cameron Parrott run very wide at the final corner and actually collect the tyre barrier on the exit of the final corner. So he'll be a bit wounded from that, I think. So he's now down in, I think, 15th place, down with Glenn Miles. And so he'll have a challenging race. Higginson's gone!
Oh, he's gone, and he's got to hold the brake, and he's got to make sure he stays right there until... Oh, he's done a flick spin with the traffic oncoming. That's very lucky. I mean, the way that the track goes there as well, everyone's on the inside, but costly spin for Higginson.
It's now everyone in that group who's had a moment.
I think
over the last 3 laps.
Well, Christian Alvarez is what I think was through the contact, and I think that was because him and Higo. And Higo's gone again. He's gone again here through the fast chicane, and what's he doing here? That's cheating. He's gone straight to the pit. So, is he? No. He's
gonna wait it out, I reckon. And I think Higo here just needs to cool down, take a breath, and just get into a bit of a rhythm. We've seen this from Higginson before, once or twice. He can kind of lose his bottle, so to speak, get a bit frustrated, and then all of a sudden one mistake turns into 4 or 5. So I hope Higo just calms himself down and gets into a bit of a rhythm, and maybe finds his way back through the field a little bit.
Plenty of action already in these opening 7 minutes. As we have a look at, there is one of those last to first challenges going on here. So the back row of the grid, it was Will Devonish and Glenn Miles. Oh, there's a spin for Braxton Stancliffe at the back there as well. Devonish has just picked off the PBF car of Phil Boak, as we've seen Higginson going for another spin on our other screen. And I think he's probably, I was about to say, it looked like he was going to pull the pin from it. There, as Devonish has gone as well at the high-speed chicane.
Wow, so lucky that he didn't hit the wall there.
What is going on?
That is a crazy moment that he's just had. My word.
That's insanely fast as well. And again, just got it all wrong, got the line wrong, and just got spat out the other side. And ironically, about half the length of the front straight behind him is Higginson, who's obviously had several spins as well. Do we need to pay attention to the Ferraris? Is this a Ferrari thing that's going on here with all the spinning? Maybe we'd leave them alone?
It's maybe not a Ferrari thing. I was just trying to find out what happened to Turmo after he was immediately on Steve Bolger's bumper for the first few laps, but he himself had a spin in the final corner and dropped to the tune of about 8 seconds behind his teammate. So it's actually not too far ahead of Christian Alvarez. Oh, as we got, I think that's Justin Cecil. He's hit the concrete on the exit of turn 8. They're falling like flies, Nether.
They have, and yeah, he's gone way off track there as well. And drops a bunch of spots as well. Local yellow. Now, importantly, the safety car is on for the sprint rounds. This is a new feature compared to last year when it was just black flag rules only. So all these incidents haven't been enough to trigger the car. Oh, that's nasty. And so nasty, it actually didn't capture it on the other side of the camera. We had to roll back to there. Let's have a look at the aftermath of that one. There he is. He got hung up there and... Oh, he got what? His left side tyres were on that curb on that side. That's a lapse in concentration.
Yeah, he straddled the curb there, and that's once you straddled the curb, you've got nothing connecting you to the ground really. And once he got off of it, it spat him out. So another weird one. I think must be one of the things about using a track that's brand new to everyone. No one really knows the quickest, fastest, best, safest way around it, and everyone's trying to test things. Or it's still in the race session, so it's kind of wild the amount of incidents we've already had. But no incidents so far out the front for the two Liz Simsport guys. They've cracked onto a bit of a lead. 2 seconds for Rosella over Wedding and 2 seconds for Wedding over Bolger, and then it looks like Alvarez and Lockie Burke are battling pretty closely for 5th and 6th.
Yeah, they found each other. That's probably one of the closer battles on track at the minute. The other one, Steve Warwick, Braxton Stancliffe over 10th and 11th, and then you got Justin Cecil and Nathan Higginson over 13th and 14th. But the walking wounded battle. Yeah, whoops! And there's been coming together between the two of them. They both made mistakes.
Jeez, okay.
That's
it's gonna be that kind of night now, is it?
I was thinking about this just a few seconds ago. I'm wondering if I'm going to go and need to raid my... there's a bit of lag, man, for Alvarez. If I'm going to go and need to raid my MP3 collection and find Queen's Another One Bites the Dust, and going to have to map that as a soundboard on this broadcast.
Jeez, it's
getting that way.
Hectic. Yeah. What even happened? I looked away for a second, and all of a sudden, Alvarez was pointing at 90 degrees to the circuit, and then Burke was pointing at 90 degrees in the opposite direction. It all happened so fast.
Yeah, I think there was one of them that made a mistake at the opening chicane, and then when they were trying to recover, the other one made a mistake when trying to avoid. So a little bit of both worlds there. I think they were sort of almost just to blame for the incidents as each other. They both didn't sort of really come together there. It was just a happening that happened at the same part of the thing.
Okay. So now Alvarez has Philip Boak for company in the battle for 5th place. We've got a yellow flag. Oh, and Philip Boak spins it around at turn 2. Oh my word, what is going on? That's another one. That's another one at turn 2, just as we were bringing it onto camera. So now Lockie Burke goes through. Is it going to be Steve Warwick and Braxton Stancliffe going through as well? Rhodey at the moment is up in 7th place now. It's a fire sale. Everyone's finding a way to fall off the circuit.
Everybody has done something weird at this point in time. Everybody's had at least one sort of moment throughout this race. I don't know what to say at the moment. There's a bit of panel exchange going on as well behind Rhodey, between Stancliffe and Warwick as well. Look at this, inside, outside, little bit of contact here.
This is danger. We saw this come on. Oh.
Yeah, I think that was possibly a little bit naughty from Steve Warwick there. He did have to get down there, but he did put the squeeze on just a little bit too much. And Stancliffe, very, very understandably, gave a little bit of displeasure with the light bar there. Rhodey's going to be in a bit of trouble here, I think, because he's about to get caught and passed by Steve Warwick, possibly into one, if not into one, very, very shortly after.
Have a look at this battle pack that's forming as well. On the tail of it is Will Devonish and Phil... I forgot his name. Phil Boak. It is Phil Boak. Yeah. So Warwick's made it through. Next one in that little queue is... Oh, Rhodey's going to fight back through turn 4. He's not going to take that one lying down at all.
He's got some fire in him tonight. He's actually decided he wanted to want that position back. But that's unfortunately compromised him, though, and he's about to lose a spot to Stancliffe. There it goes.
Oh, and off the road in the background goes Phil Boak as well. So bit of a weird one there for Boakey as he just kind of waltzed himself off the circuit. But Warwick's through, Stancliffe got through on roadie. Next will be Will Devonish as they come along the back straight next to the lake. Now, will Rhodey give this one up easy, or is he going to make Will work for it as they come into the fast little section? He's going to hold his position here. And Will's going to have to try and dive down the inside. Roddy left the door open for just a moment as we're riding on board with Devonish down the main straight now, down the drag strip. Does the Ferrari have the ponies to take over the Lexus? In fact, does the Lexus have the ponies to get on the tail of the Acura as they come down towards turn one? Roddy swings to the inside. Not quite. But it's all very willing in the mid-pack here now. They're playing for keeps, and it's for, what, 5th, 6th position.
And we're only closing in on half distance on this race now as well. So much action in the opening 15 minutes. And this is what we like to see. This is what the sprint round is all about. It's all about the urgency.
Oh, no. Oh, we just saw a yellow flag in Sector 1. Cracker's looped it on the exit of Turn 3 and has recovered. He's now down like 5 or 6 seconds behind Cameron Parrott, as we've still got Rhodey still holding Will Devonish off quite well through that second sector.
This is one of the best performances I think I've seen from Rhodey for a while, and I'm not sure if he's got some familiarity with this circuit or not, but he's driving a brilliant effort at the moment to hold the much faster Will behind him. And nothing Will can do about it. As you try up at the inside here again at the last corner this time, he does, and he's a lot further alongside this time, and has made it stick. Pulls away from him now, so Rhodey can't come down and try and cover that line.
Oh, they're going to go. It's going to be a full-on drag race down the drag strip. In fact, the Lexus has a bit in the legs and brakes a little earlier, a little further ahead than the Ferrari, but Devonish is a master of that sort of move and gets it done. So Devonish up into 9th after that. I worked hard for it for 2 laps there.
Oh, he's pitched a brake and gone a little bit deep there as well. So very nearly gave Rhodey another opportunity to regain that spot.
Yeah, he's fighting over the very tail end of the top 10 here. It looks like Rhodey's just made a little bit of a mistake and let Phil Boak through now.
Yes.
So we might get a little bit of calm just for a moment, maybe, perhaps. Just for a moment.
Just for a moment. I think that's probably the only thing we can probably say. It's just for a moment. We have a look quickly through the field as it sits. Half distance now, importantly, has been chalked up. Luke Rosella, 3.1 second margin over his teammate Lewis Wedding. Steve Bolger in third. He's actually 8 seconds behind the race leader there. And you got Turmo, Christian Alvarez, Lockie Burke and Steve Warwick, Braxton Stancliffe, Will Devonish and Phil Boak's the top 10. So there's still that mid-pack. Look at him right there. Warwick all the way down to Rhodey. 4 seconds separating a handful of positions there.
There's been contact in turn 1 and Devonish has just managed to hold on. Sorry to jump in over the top of you, Nether, but Braxton Stancliffe had just been passed down the main straight by Will and then hit the brakes just a moment too late and actually just tagged the rear of the Ferrari. It was very lucky that both of those cars didn't end up on the concrete as we go to the replay.
Let's have a look at this one. Worthwhile having a look. So good drag in a straight line for the Ferrari. And let's see what happened here. Yeah, carried too much speed. Oh, that's super, super lucky. And I would argue that Braxton Stancliffe needs to give that back.
I would argue similarly. However, I reckon Braxton might say that Will maybe put the brakes on a little too early and he had nowhere to go. So, you know, that should be enough. And I think also having Phil Boak in the middle complicates it just a little bit. But here we go again. This time it's going to be Boak and Will having a look at the rear of the Acura as they come down the main straight. Looks like Braxton got quite a decent run though, and he's going to hold that position as Will dives to the inside over Boak and makes that position back into 9th place for Will and back on the tail of the Acura. This is mad stuff.
Absolutely insane down the field. Oh, a little bit of a reserve there from Phil Boak saying, come on, we'll get a wriggle on. We want to catch up to the Acura of Stancliffe and repass him and continue our battle after that. And Rhodey's now still hanging on grimly to the back of this pair of cars. He's actually lost about another second on that last lap. There he is in the Lexus as they head on to the back straight for the 15th time. So it looks like we're going to be pretty much right in the window of somewhere around the 25 to 28 lap mark. I think we're probably going to get about 26, 27, just my quick mental math says at the moment. Stancliffe a little bit wide at the last corner, but it's not terrible. The marbles out there, you know, they're not all that worrying. It's more because you can get your foot down and then just use that huge exit of the final corner to just power out and just try your best to hold here. Oh, there's a bit of contact again there. Lucky not for a bit more major contact that time around, but this time Devonish is through.
And it looks like Boakes might squeeze his way through into turn 4 as well. The wide line has to be held there for Braxton. He can't come all the way down because there's a Mercedes in the way, but he makes it work for him and will sit himself nicely. Still, I thought Boak was going to try and squeeze his nose down there, but there was no way that was going to work. So Boak's still in 10th. Braxton Stancliffe holds on to 9th. And Road in the background, I'm not sure if you caught it, but he took the escape road through the turn 1, 2, 3 chicane. And there's a safety car.
Safety car called. Pits are closed under a safety car as well. So that's a new item for this one. Now, who is it? Importantly, I think
Cameron Parrott.
So let's have a look. What happened to Cam Parrott on this one? So we're under safety car condition. And did he get a bit of helping hand here, or did he do this on his own? He was battling with Higginson. There was possibly a little bit of, was there some contact? Oh, it's nose-to-tail contact between the pair of them. That's what's triggered it.
And then because they both came to a stop effectively off the circuit, that was, yeah, what's triggered the safety car. So we'll see the field all get neutralised. It'll bring the group at the front back together, and it might even bring the likes of Lockie Burke, Steve Warwick, Will Devonish into the mix up the front after they've had moments in battles throughout. So
yeah, this is important here for Cam Parrott here, Flood, because he recovered just in front of Luke Rosella. And now the safety car's also gone through here. The safety car's missed the trick, and they were hasn't actually jumped out of the lane because of where it is positioned in the lane. So everybody's got to catch up to the back of this safety car here and get themselves in order. And everybody that is behind the safety car up to the race leader will then have to go round again.
There we go. It looks like the safety car has managed to find its way ahead of Luke Rosella, rather.
Yeah, so they have here. So that's lucky. So for Rosella, he's probably done the right thing there, realised the safety car hadn't left the lane in a timely enough fashion and just eased off the throttle and let him drive on past. So for Parrott, he will be the last car on... Actually, no, Glenn Miles will be the last car on the back of the train, I think, because he's a lap down. We've lost Cracker. Yeah, I was about to say we've lost Cracker from this one as well.
And that's a weird one because Cracker, I'd noticed, had unlapped himself under the safety car, maybe unjustly. He went past as Luke Rosella and Lewis Wedding had pulled themselves over to wait for the safety car. So I'm not sure what's happened there. It just kind of maybe, I'm not sure. I think he's just disconnected or something along those lines. If you are in the live chat, Cracker, let us know what on earth had happened to you.
You're not quite sure about that one. Usually, if you are a lap traffic, you get to go. If you get a lucky dog, you get to go through. Now, speaking of lucky dog, I think Glenn Miles is about to get a lucky dog here. He's third in the queue, potentially behind these two, so he may be getting the instruction here to go through. Let's wait and see. And he is.
Yeah, brilliant.
So he's going to be on the lead lap as well. Well done. So he's the only car one lap down, and he'll play catch up to the back of this field as well. So, well, 8 and a bit minutes to go. At least another lap under safety car, maybe possibly 1 or 2 more after that. Green-white checker is also in effect here as well. We're not going to get close to the green-white checker situation unless we get a safety car in the last few minutes of this race, but this sets up a really interesting finish.
And I'm not sure if you've noticed, Nether, Phil Boak's gone into the pits.
Okay, so that's not what I was expecting. So what's Phil Boak doing in the pits? Did he top up fuel? Or did he just do an unusual tour of the pits? I want to have a look at that again, because that's...
He definitely stopped. I think he might have even taken tyres, which may not be too bad of an idea if you have that fresh left side tyre.
Here he comes.
That might be something
Was
that
it just
pays
tyres?
dividends.
Yeah, it looks like it might be... Well, surely not fuel. Yeah, it looks like his front end's gone up, and his back end going to go up to match. Yeah, it is. So you're right, he's taken tyres.
So look for, oh, I was about to say look for that Mercedes to be very speedy, but he just lit it up coming through turn 6 and almost put it in the wall. So maybe he needed tyres a bit more than we expected. In fact, Glenn Miles also gone to grab some tyres, but we'll see if that pays dividends for Glenn.
Well, he's got to be really quick here too, because the field's coming through the last couple of corners and he's in the lane now. He's in for tyres, and if you just keep an eye on your uppermost part of your screen there, you can just see them. Here comes the safety car. So if Glenn's taking tyres, he's got to get a wriggle on. He's got. Ooh. He's going to be. No, he's going back a lap down.
Does he get the lucky dog again?
No.
Ah.
He doesn't, unfortunately. So he's come into the lane as well. I mean, safety car's going around again. I think now he's just. Surely can't be taken on fuel. No, he's just going to have to feed into the back of this grid here.
Maybe just a smart way to get out of everyone's way, perhaps.
Yeah, that's probably the best thing to do, actually. He's lap down. He's the last car on the lead lap anyway. And there he goes. Does a smart thing. Feeds back into the lane. Oh, the line, rather. All right. So, running order as it stands right now with 6 minutes remaining. No change in the top half a dozen spots. Rosella from Wedding, Bolger and Termo, Alvarez and Burke, Steve Warwick in 7th. Will Devonish has driven from the rear of the field through to 8th, despite having a couple of excursions throughout. Braxton Stancliffe 9th. Rhodey in a magnificent 10th place at the moment, and he'll go to battle with Justin Cecil and Nathan Higginson and possibly Cam Parrott over the last few minutes of this race. And then Phil Bogue is the last car on the lead lap. Glenn Miles is 1 lap down. And then we've lost Cracker back a couple of laps ago, the end of lap 16, and Brenton Foley didn't even complete a lap. Long time I've said that about Brenton Foley, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's quite unusual indeed. Unfortunate that his key bindings. It's always when you're in a rush, isn't it, that those little problems happen. I'm going to keep eyes on Foley on this restart with the brand new tyres, but I think he's going to be one to watch as we're going racing once again. Luke Rosella and Lewis Wedding. Luke Rosella's going to back them all up and wait till the very end to go again, I suspect. It's a very long way to the race to the finish line here at Portland. And so as we trudge down the main straight, when is Luke going to let the hammer down?
Well, I think he's going to take him right up to the line again. I wouldn't be surprised. And he does, right up to the checkered finish stripe. And away we go. And what does he do here? He darts back across the road. Oh, I wouldn't be surprised to see him get pinged for a track violation at turn 1 there. That was well over the curb and got it all wrong. And he bolts away. Anything happening a bit further down the order? Looks like Lockie Burke actually got a move done on Christian Alvarez. Yeah. So he moves up into P5. So at the restart, he was very much awake at the wheel there and caught Alvarez napping, and now leaves him to the demise of his teammate, Steve Warwick, who's gone wide.
And that's allowed Will Devonish through. Braxton Stancliffe is going to go side by side through the turn 7. A right-hander. Stancliffe stays around the outside. There's a little bit. This is an inversion of what we saw earlier between the pair of them.
Yeah, a little bit better that time through there. A little bit of bumping and grinding, but they got through. They didn't escort each other off the road, and Warwick prevails for the moment. Stancliffe carries a bit more speed into the turn, but he missed the apex at the third last corner. Devonish is off the circuit and is so close to turning Devonish around. That was wild.
Classic restart shenanigans. They come back down the main straight once again. This time it's Warwick from Devonish from Stancliffe in that little battle pack. And Stancliffe pulls out to make a move this time on Devonish. Doesn't quite get it done. Devonish goes a bit deep. He goes all the way over the curb there. And Stancliffe's going to have the inside line through 3 and 4. He's going to get that move done once again.
He does indeed. And behind them, Rhodey is doing still a great job to hang on to what is currently 10th place in the running order. He's about to lose that, I fear, though, because Boak, with fresher tyres, is right on his hammer.
And it's all over the back of the Lexus. A little bit of a love tap as well, as you can just see ahead. Will Devonish actually got around the inside there of Stancliffe and then around the outside of turn 7. Boak made it through on Rhodey. Now Higginson is looking at trying to make a move on Rhodey. What about Phil Boak now up to 10th place after the restart? Let's see if that fresher tyres can let him make further inroads. As we've got a change for third place. Luke Rosella, he's gone off. He's gone off around the last section of the lap.
What's he done? That's a very, very rare mistake, and he hasn't got a lot of time left to get back to the lead of this race. That's another rare mistake from the championship leader. It looks like it was in the last couple of corners here, Flood. We're about to get a replay. Yeah, we got spat out on the second last turn.
And he went well wide in that respect. So it's now Lewis Wedding who leads the way from Steve Bolger. Turmo now in third place with Luke Rosella all over his hammer as they come through the left-hander at turn 5 into 6, now into 7. Rosella dives down to the inside. Turmo holds him high and dry as they're going to go side by side through the back section of track. Who's going to have the legs? Is it going to be the Porsche or the McLaren as they come down the back straight? It's only a minute and a half left, so we're going to get maybe 2.5 laps of racing. Rosella tries to go around the outside. Can Turmo get the undercut back into the final corner? The door gets closed on him very quickly, and it looks like Rosella has made that move now. So it is Loose Sim Sport, Gravel Rash, Loose Sim Sport, Gravel Rash, your top 4.
There are going to be 2 more laps after this one. Wedding did an 8-9 last time around, so it's actually going to be touch and go as to whether or not we get 2 more laps or 3 more laps in this one, depending on what his lap time's going to be here. He doesn't want to slow up too much though, Lewis Wedding, because he's got Bolger only 8 and a little bit tenths of a second away. So he doesn't want to back them right up to the line just to try and shorten it to 1 more lap. He's got to be really careful here as to how he manages it. They should be fine on fuel because they had those couple of laps under safety car, so fuel should be a factor. It'll be what the state of your left-hand side tyres are right about now. Are they starting to feel the pinch, or have you still got something good underneath you?
And it looks to me like Lewis has got something good underneath him. He's stretched out a few more car lengths now. That first sector, a 26.6 versus 26.8 for Steve Bolger. Fastest of that front group is actually Turmoil, 26.5. So he's still very much into this. He's still looking to try and get on the podium as we come around to start the final lap, question mark, or maybe not. We'll find out very shortly.
We're about to find
as we
out.
come to the line.
It's the last lap this time around, I think. Yep, 25 out of 25. So this is the last lap. He's timed it absolutely perfectly, Lewis Wedding, to get to the line and shorten it to 1 more lap without losing too much track position and too much ground to Bolger. In fact, he's actually increased his advantage. It's now nearly a full second as they go through 4 and 5 for the final time.
Leaning on that left side tyre through this first section and then flick it back to the left itself. It looks like Bolger's are struggling a little more than the likes of those behind him, as Luke Rosella now has half a second on to find to get onto the tail of that McLaren. It's looking very, very tight for the tail end of the podium, but Lewis Wedding has checked out at the front. It's now over a second as we come down the back straight into the final section of corners, Nether.
Yep, so here goes Rosella, darting, weaving, looking all around Steve Bolger at the moment. 1 more time to go. Bolger's got to block it, and he does. He drives it right down the inside there. So Rosella with a bit of luck. Oh, there's a bit of overlap here as Wedding gets to the line. So Wedding's going to win this race. Behind him, though, Rosella is just going to come up a little bit short on the final lap of second place.
Well done. Turmo comes home in 4th. Lockie Burke finishes in 5th. Steve Warwick actually made it into 6th as well. So both of the Blackshaw's cars in the top 6. Phil Boak, with those brand new tyres, came home in 7th place ahead of Will Devonish. Christian Alvarez on the restart was unlucky. He dropped down to 9th place. Braxton Stancliffe, the top 10. Nathan Higginson into 11th place. Rhodey couldn't keep up with the field once the restart happened. He finished in 12th. Cameron Parrott in 13th. Justin Cecil had a bit of a moment in that last section. He is still yet to finish, but will finish in 14th place. Glenn Miles was a lap down. He finishes in 15th. Cracker and Foley DNFs. Nether, what a cracking race. That was action-packed from start to finish, the whole way around.
Absolutely. The Portland has delivered a really ripping first race, and I can't wait to see what's going to be in the second race in a very, very short amount of time. To think as well, Brenton Foley's got to come back into this as well. Cracker, I'm sure, being... I'm getting word in the live chat too that Brendan Ross is going to join us as well, so we're going to have up to 18 cars. And personally, Flood, I'm glad the ASR admins made the decision to put the safety car back into play, because that really spiced that sprint race up.
It certainly did at the front end of the field, absolutely. The mid pack, we saw plenty of battles throughout the race, but once that safety car came out and compressed the front of the field, it really lit a fire under a few people. And as we're watching, I'm seeing donuts from the two Loose Sim Sport cars as we're watching Steve Bolger and Termo come to their pit box. A rare mistake from Luke Rosella in that final section dropped him down to fourth place, and he almost recovered back to the front row. But do you think maybe the brain fog, the COVID, might have infected him in that instance?
I don't think so. I think it was more a case that he just got a little bit too far to the wrong part of that second curb. He got too far to the right and sort of almost straddled the curb at a really awkward angle, and then that spat him out for the final corner.
Yeah, unfortunate for Luke. That's the first blot on his GT3 campaign so far this season for Luke, after perfect rounds at Montreal and at Watkins Glen. Yeah, it's quite surprised, but it's still Loose Sim Sport taking the win with Lewis Wedding this time, and that's the first time we've seen Lewis Wedding take a win in a while, isn't it?
It's been a very, very, very long time between drinks for Lewis Wedding from a race win. I'm trying to remember the last time that we actually had this, Lewis. I've got him in the box with us now, actually. We're going to have a little bit of a chat with him for his first race win. But Lewis, this has got to go all the way back almost to, I think, 2019 when you won your second GT3 series title for the last time you had a race win.
No, I think I had one in 2020. I think it's still. I think Silverstone in the Mercedes. I think it was the last time I won.
Actually, yes, you're right. I think that was very, very early on in that series.
And that was a strategy game that you played there, I think, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, I was racing Xeris for that one. So that
correct. Yes, 2020. You're right.
That is a long, long time ago. So yeah, it's been a long, long gap between drinks.
Almost inherited that win, I guess, by actually you did. You inherited it by default through Rosella's mistake, who was looking a little bit sort of untouchable at the front there for a minute. What did you think when you saw him go off?
I was like, I couldn't believe it, but then I had to sort of focus because that part of the track, the mistake he made is very, very easy to do, especially like the Porsche in particular. I've had to set the car up in a way which probably makes it a little bit slower around other parts of the track, but just to get through that part of the track, I've had to make a lot of sacrifices. So on worn tyres, especially after the safety car and stuff like that, the pressures and temps wouldn't quite have been there. It's an easy enough mistake to make, and yeah, like I was surprised because before that, I mean, he'd driven flawlessly. He hadn't made a mistake really at all. And that's, in just about any series all year long. So I was quite surprised, but from then on, it's just about trying to hold on.
Flood, you got anything to add?
No, I just want to say congratulations. You were almost the only person to have a flawless race. We were watching so many mistakes from people in the mid pack and people towards the front, and yeah, in the end, you were the one who had the flawless race, and you were rewarded with victory. So congratulations, Lewis.
Thank you. If I'm being honest, I think that's actually my best race in literally years. So even without the safety car and Luke falling off the road, I was going to be happy with that race just to sort of stick close to him anyway. So yeah, quite happy with that, and hopefully we can continue the trend with the LSS cars up front again.
Absolutely. Congratulations, Lewis. That's our race winner for the first sprint race tonight. We've also got our second place man, Steve Bolger. Steve, it's great to see you back on the podium in GT3 machinery.
It's very good to be here, Floody. Yeah.
So how was that race from your perspective? It looked almost a little lonely for you. You had Termo with you to begin with, and then once he made a mistake and fell away, you were kind of by yourself until that safety car.
Yeah, my teammate was pretty punchy in the first sector off the start, but and then it got pretty lonely. Just didn't quite have the pace of the Porsches up front, and was just settling into a rhythm.
And then we had that safety car and the restart, and when Luke makes a mistake like that, and all of a sudden you're in the hunt for a race victory, does something click in your brain, and do you start to fight a bit more, or did you not have enough to fight at the end there?
No, I was keen to give Lewis a bit of a hurry up. It was right at that last turn where Luke made the mistake. It was the only place on the track that I was sort of gaining on Lewis, but was never quite close enough. when I got the safety car come out, I was more concerned about going backwards than forwards. It was only really that mistake that was any hope of going forward.
And on the podium today, you look like you've got a fair bit of pace here in Portland. Do you think another podium's on the cards for tonight?
It could be. It's definitely the first track this year that really suits the McLaren. There's no long straights and no big braking sectors, so that the first sector is quite fun.
Awesome. Well, best of luck for your race 2 tonight. Congratulations on second place in race 1.
Cheers, Floody.
A little bit of a muted Steve Bolger there. It looks like, at least to me, he's not quite got that same sort of sprightly enthusiasm as we heard from him when he was out at the head of the field. But he's got to be encouraged with that sort of performance tonight. It's the first chink in the armor of the Lewis SimSport Porsches. Even though they won with Lewis, it was not quite what we would have expected from Rosella with that mistake there.
No, definitely not. And I was looking at this as well and sort of thinking, you know what, we might be potentially heading for a flawless season with all the race wins being swept by one particular driver. So it's a weird sort of feel when you think about that and then go, oh, he's fallen off the road. Okay, but no, then the Lewis SimSport Porsches also won through Lewis Wedding. So we've never had one of those seasons, I think, in ASR history where someone's won every round, and it'd be a hell of a feat to be able to do it, to be perfectly honest with you. But good to see another name on the top step of the podium, and one that we haven't seen for a while.
Absolutely, and I got to say as well, a big shout out to Lockie Burke and Steve Warwick for their performances in the Aston Martins. They managed that race pretty well, even though they got into a little bit of kerfuffle early on, like everyone did in that mid-pack. But they found their way into a really good position, and they should be very happy with 5th and 6th place.
Yeah, I agree, and they've done quite well. I think it's probably one of Steve Warwick's best results. I think we've seen him for some time. He's had a few top 10s over the course of time, but to be knocking on the door of a top 5 finish. And again, he was one of the ones that I don't think made too many mistakes, but any of the times that he was off the track or a little bit sideways, a lot of it wasn't his doing. I mean, we saw that really awkward one where there was a bit of side-to-side contact with him and Braxton Stancliffe that could have ended in disaster. But apart from that, I think he has driven a fairly good race as well. And we probably should give a shout out to Rhodey as well, because that's probably one of his best drives as well. And to see that he was actually willing to refight for a position that he lost, for me, big tick.
And as well, not just against anyone, but against Will Devonish, who's one of the hardest heads in ASR. So yeah, very impressed with that, and hope to see more from that. That's really good stuff from Rhodey.
Yeah, I was genuinely shocked when I saw him try and resend that pass, and Rhodey's doing what? Anyway, I know we give him a bit of flack for everything that he does from time to time, but no, in all honesty, he's a good guy. He's a great resource for ASR actually as well, because of all the bits and pieces of stuff that he does behind the scenes. So can't thank him enough, and it's good to see him actually have a really good result for a change as well. What we're going to do is we're going to take a couple of minutes just to catch our breath, and we'll be back with qualifying 2 in a few moments' time. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You're watching the 60 minutes of Portland. It's the intermission, I guess we can call it, if you're talking about a stage production. We are just in a little bit of a holding pattern, waiting for everybody that was in the server to jump back in. They've gone and had a little bit of time to, go and have a toilet break and do a whole bunch of other things. And with a bit of luck, we're about to go, Flood, qualifying for the second race this evening.
Yeah, and a few entry updates as well. It looks like we've gained Brendan Ross from the audience, and so he'll be in the server. Hopefully, Brenton Foley has sorted his button mapping issues, so he'll be able to take the grid this time and take qualifying this time. Hopefully, we'll see Braxton Stancliffe back in because he's had a game crash, but Justin Cecil has elected to sit out this second race, so we won't be seeing the Vodafone Acura NSX in the second race this evening. But hopefully, we will be seeing Braxton Stancliffe's Acura any tick of the clock.
Yeah, I'm just waiting to see if he's on his if he's in our Discord at the moment, or if he's on his way back in. I can see the client count has actually gone up by 1 on the server side, because of course I am the server host, so I can see all that. It does mean that he has connected to the server and he is on his way back in. So literally, as soon as he's in, I would expect to see the session being moved on to qualifying. Another 15 minutes, and then that will set the grid for another 30-minute race. Well, let's have a bit of a talk about a very quick summary, I guess, of the last race there, Flood. Who didn't perform to your expectations? And be honest. Don't hold no punches. Who do you think was the one that needs to pick the game up in this one?
Well, honestly, I think I don't want to say Luke Rosella because that's just mean. But had that not been a mistake after a safety car restart, he would have gotten away with it. The fact that the front four was compressed meant that mistake cost him a lot more. Will Devonish, I was a bit surprised. Normally we don't see him have as much difficulty processing his way through traffic. The likes of Rhodey and Braxton Stancliffe and Steve Warwick, he was having some real difficulty getting through a few of those guys. So I'm not sure, pardon me, if it was because he was unfamiliar with the track or unfamiliar with the car, but he seemed to struggle a lot more than I've come to expect from Will. But I think for a lot of people, they had generally quite a good race, or at least parts of a good race. Maybe Christian Alvarez will feel a bit hard done by getting monstered on the restart after starting the safety car section in 5th place, but he was still very, very well paced to be in 5th before that intervention.
He was, and I would look at a number of drivers that were in that sort of mid-pack that, they were fighting there and they tripped over each other a little bit too much. They made some silly mistakes. So, Will Devonish made a couple of silly mistakes. Phil Boak made a couple of silly mistakes. They were guys I was expecting to sort of see, right on the back end of the top 6. Or 7 or 8, but they just they made life difficult for themselves, and they only got saved by the safety car. That's the trouble. I think that they need to arrest that in this one. They need to avoid getting themselves into those sort of situations. Although on the other side of the equation, I want to say big tick, all the drivers getting through turn 1, lap 1 unscathed. That's probably the one that I think we were all fingers crossed and everything crossed, looking at it going, is everybody going to get through here? And the answer was yes, everybody got through.
Fingers, arms, legs, toes, and eyes crossed. It happens again for race 2. They were all very kind to each other, I thought. It was only until, I think, turn 4 and 5 where we saw people start to make a little bit of a mistake. I'm actually still perplexed what happened to Phil Boak on that first lap. He didn't seem to befell any contact or anything, but just fell to the back of the grid. So maybe that's something we can ask for someone in the live chat or someone with a line to Boki to get onto. But we are already underway for that second qualifying session. We have Turmo, Nathan Higginson and Steve Bolger leading us away for another 15 minutes. And Nether, let's see if Rosella can crack a 6.
Yeah, let's see if he can crack a 6. Now, there might have been a little bit of track change as well between sessions as well. So we'll see if the track grip actually affects the times that were put down. So fastest time in qualifying one was a 7.1 to Luke Rosella, so that's the benchmark that we'll be looking to see if we can beat.
As well, only the top 4, and that's the 2 Loose Sim Sport Porsches and the 2 Gravel Rash Racing McLarens, managed a lap time in the 7s. So if anyone else can get into the 107s, that'll be a very impressive lap time.
Oh, definitely. I think a few people have learnt a few things after the last race as well about, you know, car control and where to place the car, and we'll see how they go. Termo's going to get us underway here, and followed by Nathan Higginson and then Steve Bolger behind him. So, oh, that's a bit ugly and a bit nasty over those curves. Got it all wrong there at turn 2. That will be a little bit costly.
It was very deep. He was already beyond the apex of turn 1 before he actually managed to make the corner. So that's probably why we'll see that first sector time come up any tick of the clock now,
Yeah,
and it's
about
26.6. So not the outright absolute pace that we'd come to expect.
Well, compared to everybody behind, Higginson was a 27.0, so that was a little, that's, here you go. And then Steve Bolger, the 26.5, so definitely some time lost there at turn 1 for Termo.
In fact, not all that much time as we come through to the second sector mark. 48.4 to the second sector mark. Very smooth through that fast S curve. Managed to keep the car settled the whole way through. Brings the throttle up nicely as we're now on board to come down the main straight. Let's see what the first time in anger is, and it is a 108.1, so not too far away from that magic 107 land.
No, not far away at all, surprisingly. And that line actually seems to be working for him. While it was a little through turn 1 and 2, while it seemed a bit ugly and a bit weird from the angle that we were looking at, it appeared to actually have delivered him a fairly decent lap time.
I think there is room for improvement.
I think so too. It's a good opening benchmark considering that the track grip is what it is. Rosella's gone in with a 7.5. So that's now the benchmark, and he's the only one in the 7s so far.
And it looks like the track has been swept just a little bit because Rosella's sector times, I remember in the first qualifying I made mention that both Rosella and Wedding had the same second sector mark down to the 1000th, and that time it was almost, I think it was 3 or 4 tenths away compared to where Rosella was in that first qualifying session. So there's still plenty of time to find in this second section. I'm just watching Cameron Parrott at the moment. He's up half a second on his lap time as he comes around to the line.
Rosella's
and how
up
about
at
Luke Rosella?
10th and a half at the moment to the second sector split, and now onto the main straight. Nice and clean, nice and smooth, and to the line. And this will be in the 7s for sure, be a low 7 as a 7.3, and found a bit more time. Found time in every sector.
Wow, so okay, so Rosella's already putting the hammer down here. He's gunning for that 106. So I hope he finds it, just for the absolute, just the chaos of it.
Your man Cam Parrott had moved himself up into 9th. That now becomes 10th, with a couple of drivers jumping up ahead of him. Although he has found some time in the first sector. Good improvement, 3 and a little bit tenths. And who's trailing him there on track at the moment? It's one of the Loose Sim Sport Porsches. Might actually be the one that belongs to Lewis Wedding, who's yet to set a time at the moment.
Yes, you are right on that one. So we'll keep an eye on where Wedding pops out as well.
I've just noticed there's actually plenty of people sat up in pit lane at the moment as well. Lockie Burke, Will Devenish, Glenn Miles, Rhodey, they're all sitting in the lane at the moment. Now, I did see a message that apparently Burkey and Will Devenish were away from the keyboard when the session advanced. They probably don't know that quali's actually on at the moment, and they haven't left the lane.
Hope they figure that out soon.
But mind you, I think Will Devenish is going to be doing a last to first challenge. I wouldn't be surprised.
That does sound like Will Devenish, truth be told. We're already 5 minutes into this qualifying session as well, so laps have come in thick and fast, and we've got a little bit of a grid shaping up already. So we've got, at the moment, we've got still 9.5 minutes left. It's Rosella from Termo who's in the 107s, and in fact just smacked the wall quite hard. Whereabouts is he? He's
Rosella.
No, this was Turmo, sorry.
Turmo, sorry.
So he hit the wall, I think it was somewhere in Sector 2. But regardless, it was now Steve Bolger in third.
Here it
and
is,
Phil
actually.
Boat. So let's have a look at this replay.
So what did Turmo do? So he's coming up to turn 7 here, I think it is. Or no, sorry, that's 5. And then on the change of direction. Oh wow! So actually, it was at 7, and the change of direction there, and that's what spat him out.
Shows how hard he's pushing to try and find a few extra tenths.
Well, importantly for Turmo, he's into the 7s. He's done a 7-7, which I think is quite commendable for what he's at the moment. But it's still nearly 4.5 tenths in arrears of Luke Rosella right now.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's such a big gap between Rosella and the rest of the field. As I think I just saw Steve Warwick exit stage left at turn 7 in a very similar way, just ahead of Turmo, in fact, and he's exited back to the garage.
Yeah, same sort of part of the track, actually.
Yeah, so because there's such a big gap between what Rosella can put and what everyone else seems to be able to find, and we've seen that in qualifying broadly, Rosella is the one-lap master, and we see that it doesn't matter what he's in, whether it's GT3s or if it's supercars or if it's super trucks or if it's, you know, whatever. He just seems to find a way to extract that one-lap pace, and yeah, it's quite a large gap between himself and the rest of the field. But you know, those incremental gains should still be celebrated for the likes of Turmo and Bolger and even Lewis Wedding.
Yeah, well, he's actually making some incremental gains right now. Lewis Wedding is about a little tenth and a little bit to the good. Localised yellow here in the final sector. Quickly withdrawn, and then we'll put back out again. And Wedding improves to the other side of the second row. So it's currently now Loose Simsport Porsche from Gravel Rash McLaren, and then Loose Simsport Porsche from Gravel Rash McLaren on the top 2 rows. Geez, that's a tongue twister in itself.
Absolutely.
Struggled to get that one out.
I'm riding on board with Steve Bolger as he starts his next flying lap. It looks very smooth through Sector 1 so far. I'll give you the lap time update as we get it, as you've got. Here we go. So a 10th up on his PB as we come through turn 6 into turn 7.
Good illustration there of a little bit of a rise that goes up out of 6 and into 7. There's not a lot of elevation change on this circuit at all. I think you can probably measure it in centimetres and millimetres rather than anything else. It is a little bit bumpy. As you can see here as the McLaren just sort of bouncing up and down a little bit. It's not like F1 style porpoising, but it's just a little bit of undulation, a little bit of roughness and abrasiveness in the track surface. There's a bit of a bump there on the transition to the drag strip. There's a little rise in the front straight there, and then you sort of go down a little bit of a hill, and then there's the same sort of thing in the next sector. Bolger's time, good enough, improves to the front row actually, knocks Turmo down to row number 2.
And it was all in that last sector, a 19.5, purple in the last sector by 2 tenths. So he really found something. We were on board, and I was going to say that it looked so settled through that fast chicane. As soon as that car went over that left-hand curb, it just all settled down and just managed to just point out the other side. There was no hint of oversteer or anything like that. So Bolger's got that car tuned to a dime. The problem is Luke Rosella has his car, I don't know, tuned to a quarter? I don't know what the expression is, but he's found another purple first sector, a little slower in the middle sector, and in fact he's aborted this lap.
Yeah, Wedding's found a small bit of change as well on this lap. It's only a really small chunk. It probably won't be enough to move him to the other side of the row. Actually found some more time. So he found enough time there to be able to move him to the other side of the road. Bolger, has he found any more time? No, lost it.
And again, it was all in that last sector. He was up on his PB too, that last sector, but only by half a tenth, and then not quite able to match his amazing last sector that time around. So Bolger's definitely got something in that last sector. But we've only got 5 minutes left in this qualifying session, Nether. It's gone quite quickly.
It has gone quite quickly. Now, we have lost somebody from the session. Looks like Lockie Burke has dropped out. I'm just trying to see where he is at the moment, if he's actually sitting in the ASR Discord with Will Devonish and the other guys at the moment. And no, he's not. So we might have, unfortunately, lost him for the next race. We'll keep an eye on that one, see what's going on there, as we've got our eyes on Brendan Ross at the moment, coming out for his last few runs of the night. Now, hard to tell. It's a little bit hard to tell the Loose Sim Sport Porsches apart sometimes. Brendan Ross is in his own ruffle team. You can see the red number on the side is the dead, and on the bonnet's the dead giveaway that he's in the satellite team, and the gold trimming around the front rear bars as well. That's the giveaway that he's the different car. There was a little moment, I think, for somebody ahead of him there too, Flood.
I didn't catch that one ahead of him. I just saw that moment for Rossi. I was watching Steve Bolger, who improved again, this time to a 7.4. So he's certainly trying to keep Rosella honest. That's Bolger's best time of the weekend.
He's going again too.
Yeah, unfortunately, Bolger just got a little excited into turn one and whacked the inside wall on his next lap. So there's plenty to play for here. It's not a foregone conclusion at this stage.
No, definitely not. The championship leader is going again, Luke Rosella, and he's a 10th up in the first sector as well. Now he's up to turn 7 right now. He's just on track ahead of Brendan Ross. So we'll go and pick up the championship leader. There he is.
And just ahead of Luke Rosella is Termo, who's 2.5 tenths up on his PB. So that's something to keep an eye on as well as he comes through the last sector.
Well, we'll pick him up first because he's ahead of him on track, and he goes onto the main straight. Doesn't use all the road, tries to shorten a little bit of the run out of the final corner just to gain those extra couple of metres there. Termo finds an improvement, doesn't improve the position, but improves the time. Rosella, already on the front row, improves the time by a 0.5 tenth.
Just quickly on Termo, I was riding on board with him. You made mention that he seemed to be a bit narrow. That's because the rear was trying to overtake the front, and he had to gather it all up as he came down the drag strip. Let's see, Lewis Wedding can't improve. He's starting another flyer, so he's looking to get onto that front row of the grid.
Roddy's staring at a 6/10 improvement here, but he got all sideways off the last corner, and he's lost the lot, I would imagine, by doing that. And that was looking all right to threaten Cam Parrott. Yeah, he lost almost the whole entire lot. He lost 6 out of the 6.5 tenths, just went like that.
So let's see, who are we expecting to move? Philip Boak, he's in 5th place. He's got Brenton Foley in 6th next to him at the moment. Foley's just about to come across the line. Whereabouts is he?
6th at the moment. 6th at the moment for car 074, remains 6th. So 3 teams filling the top 6 spots at the moment. I'm impressed again by Christian Alvarez. So he's 7th, and he's not that far away from Brenton Foley, the sole Lamborghini here tonight. And not a lot of time to find to advance himself 1 row. And that time that he's just flashed up there on the first sector split would actually do it. It would actually move him up 1 more row. And then Steve Warwick is actually not that far behind again either. So too Brendan Ross and Nathan Higginson. They're all within a shot here of moving up a couple of spots. It's a matter of tenths here.
And we made mention it was very similar in the first session as well. It's as we're watching, or as I'm watching, a few cars take an excursion through the Sector 2 grass. We've got a minute left in qualifying, so a lot of these guys might even be on their last flying lap already. Higo did improve. Now he's into 8th place, and he's a 1/4 tenth behind Alvarez, 1/2 tenth behind Foley, and 2 tenths behind Boak. So it is very congested in that mid-pack, that back end of the top 10 sort of area.
This will be Higginson's last lap, I'd imagine. He's on right now. Alvarez has just started his final lap. As we get eyes on the front straight. Big high speed moment for Wedding. Big high speed moment for Wedding at the final corner at Complex of Corners. So he's gone for a wild ride.
And that'll be his session done. I don't think he'll be able to get to the line, at least not in any meaningful way, to be able to start a final lap.
No, he's done. And the tyres will be ruined as well. Here it is. So Brendan Ross had pulled over to let him go through, and then here it is here. The tail was hanging out before he even got to the third last corner, or the first part of the chicane. So that's what that was all about.
And he was looking for 7 thousandths of a second to get over Steve Bolger. I'm going to bring our attention to Luke Rosella. You might have heard me umming and ahhing in the background. He hit a 107.001 and
blown it.
And he was up.
It was up and he blew it.
Oh no, so no 106 at least for Luke Rosella. Can Steve Bolger find that sort of pace? Surely not.
No.
No, he's out by a tenth on his PB at the moment. Who else is on flying
Oi,
lap?
there was Brendan Ross behind. Steve Bolger went for a ride as well. So there he is. All three of the Loose Sim Sport Porsches in the last 4 minutes of qualifying all took a high-speed trip through the last couple of corners.
Jeez, and that was a very, very close run thing. In the end, it was Rosella from Bolger from waiting from Termo. So Loose Sim Sport Gravel Rash, Loose Sim Sport Gravel Rash. The pair of PBF Mercedes on row 3. Neither of them made it into the 107s, but still very respectable 108.2s for those two. And then Alvarez, Higginson, Steve Warwick, Brendan Ross managed to sneak into, I think that's 10th place with a 108.6. Braxton Stancliffe, Cameron Parrott, Rhodey, Will Devonish, and Glenn Miles. We're waiting to see where Lockie Burke slots back in, if he in fact slots back in, as well as what happened to Cracker, who seemed to exit the server just as qualifying went live. Another very interesting qualifying session, Nether.
Yeah, I agree. A very entertaining one again, especially with the drivers out in front going toe-to-toe with the times again. Again, the top 4 drivers, the only ones in the 1 minute and 7 second bracket. And then it was the 2 Mercedes of Foley and Boak behind them that were the, I guess, the best of the rest, I guess you could call it right now.
Yeah, absolutely. It was kind of crazy that last lap from Luke Rosella. Like all 3 of the Loose Sim Sport cars off at that final complex. They're really looking for something there. I noticed on the sector times for Rosella's fast lap, he actually set a 19.4 in that final sector, 19.418. So he must have just flown through that chicane. Because we were, I was, wetting myself at the 19.6 that Steve Bolger did while we were on board with him. A 19.4, that's madness.
Getting some confirmation coming through that looks like Lockie Burke has called it a night. So it looks like we're only going to have 15 runners for this final race of the night. It's one of the, and actually no, Cracker, we're waiting on one more. I do apologise. So Cracker is to load back in, and then we'll be right to get underway for this final race. There he is. I'm just keeping an eye on him on the other side there, and has jumped back into this service. So we'll see what happens if the drivers want to run the warm-up session out. We can possibly, every now and again, the crew decides that they want to go a little bit early. But for the moment, it's just Brendan Ross trying to get some more laps in, trying to understand what happened to him down the order.
And do we know if Rossi has actually put in any laps before tonight?
He hadn't. No, there was no laps on the board for him as well.
Oh.
Oh well, he's what he's done there is just repeat, or very close to repeat, what he did at the back end of qualifying.
And what Rosella did at the back end of qualifying, and what Wedding did at the back end of qualifying.
What they all did at the back end of qualifying.
Yeah, wild stuff. It's gonna be very interesting. I think it's super encouraging to see the pace from Bolger and Termo. They were like, I think for a while Termo was almost on Rosella's pace for a lot of that session as well. So the fact that the Gravel Rash McLarens have found something at this circuit, we Bolger said to us that it's a track that suits the McLarens. It's a very, comparatively low speed. They don't have to worry about saving fuel. There's no real big heavy braking. It's all sort of high speed loaded corners. That's the sort of stuff that the McLaren does very well. And they've really, brought that to the very front of the grid.
They have. It's good to see some competition actually up the pointy end of the field for at least a round. The hard bit will be for McLarens when we get to Spa-Francorchamps. There will be the big long Kemmel Straight. There will also be the run out of Stavelot all the way through Blanchimont up to the bus stop as well. That will really start to hurt them. I actually keep thinking as well about the other tracks that are on the calendar and how badly the McLarens might be hurt there. We've got the run from turn 4 at Hockenheim Ring that runs all the way up through the Parabolica to the hairpin, which is a fairly long drag. And then the other one is Campo Grande actually has a fairly decent front straight. It's about the same length as the front straight here at Portland, which is the next place we go to. But then there's another one on the back straight that's about 1.25 times the length of this one. So I'm sort of thinking that while the Porsche seem to have be gaining some stuff in a straight line, the McLarens are going to have to trim a little bit of wing and a few other settings, I think, to actually keep up with them at some of the remaining rounds.
Yeah, and I guess that's part and parcel of GT racing. Each one of these cars has their own little advantages or disadvantages, and you've got to set them up to try and not just set the fastest lap or be yourself, but also to, as Cracker exits stage left.
He does.
But also to be able to race against your competition and try and take something away. So if they have to try and keep up with the Porsches, they might actually have to, as you said, trim out some wing and try and be a bit faster in a straight line to either be offensive and make a pass, or be defensive and try and stave off the likes of the Porsches.
A minute left in this warm-up session. Only 2 cars out there at the moment, Christian Alvarez and Brendan Ross. And Cracker had done a couple of laps, but he has obviously excellence to one side. And, well, Flood, do we think we're going to see much of the same in the next race? I think we'll probably might see Luke Rosella with a little bit of a grievance to file because he pretty much had that race in both hands and, well, like a pommy fieldsman, dropped the ball.
Oof. Yeah, I hope we see a little bit a cleaner run, especially from the mid-pack. While the racing and the battling was awesome, it just seemed a bit every single time we cut to someone, they threw it off the road, whether it was with assistance or without. So hopefully, just in the mid-pack, I hope it's a little bit cleaner. But everywhere we looked in that last race, it was action aplenty. So hopefully, we get a similar sort of thing this time around.
A couple of drivers just exploring the limits there as well. Brendan Ross had a bit of a unusual trip across the grass, and Christian Alvarez is calling it a session. Into the lane he comes. So we're about to go racing again by the looks of things. We've got everybody in the service, so we will roll it on, and away we go for race number 2. And Mr. Walshy in the chat talking about BOP testing before next round. I know there's been I said Walshy a bit earlier, there's been a little bit of talk in the last couple of days about if anything needed to be adjusted, and I think the word was it was going to be reviewed after this round because there wasn't a lot of time to get anything looked at. But they'll, no doubt, Lewis Wedding, who's done a fantastic job last year, done an awesome job this year with doing a lot of the balancing and trying to make it as competitive as possible. There's always going to be, as we spoke about, little quirks and little things that aren't always 100%, and I don't think it's going to be a case of you're ever going to get it 100% right. You've got to get it close enough or thereabouts. It was more about the diversity of the grid, trying to make it interesting and fairly diverse, but also we didn't want to end up with a whole grid of one make of car, otherwise it'd just be a one-make series again.
And that's not what GT3 is about, Nether. It's not about being one make. It's about everyone bringing their own thing and being competitive whether they like it or not.
That's precisely right. All right. Grid is forming up. So race number 2 about to get underway. I have a look at the grid and how the grid is actually done here as well, Flood. Look at this. It's almost like Steve Bolger and Lewis Wedding are sharing a row and there's a vacant spot next to Rosella. It's a bit of a weird sort of a thing. I've never sort of seen that before.
That all gets negated anyway because of the rolling start that we have in this series, but it is quite peculiar indeed. This second race tonight, much like the first, will start from Luke Rosella on the pole. He will have the responsibility of taking us down to the line, but he has Steve Bolger for company this time around on the front row. And third place is Lewis Wedding, and he will have Steve Bolger's teammate in the Gravel Rash Racing McLaren, Turmo, for company. So it will be 2 by 2 for the front group of 4. And then on row 3, it'll be Philip Boak and Brenton Foley in the pair of PBF Race Engineering Mercedes. Christian Alvarez will start from 7th place in the Shadow Racing Lamborghini. He has Nathan Higginson for company on row 4 in the first of the Ferraris, this one for Higginson Media Engineering. Steve Orritt will start from 9th after his impressive 6th place in the first race. Brendan Ross will be next to him, jumping in for the second race this evening. Braxton Stancliffe looks like he will be starting from the pit lane in the Acura. So hopefully he will stay out of trouble early on. Cameron Parrott will start from 12th place in the Maple Leaf SimSport Audi. Roddy will start from 13th in the Lexus, alongside the other Lexus in Cracker. The two of them racing for the PBF Academy team. And off the back row of the grid, once again, we have the pair of Wildcat Playboy Ferraris, Glenn Miles in 15th and Will Devonish out of 16th, hoping to go through the field once again. Another safety car is in the lane. The field is under control of Luke Rosella. Let's get ready for this second race this evening.
Let's go. We're 30 minutes on the clock again. Estimated again between 26 and 28 laps is what we expect the duration to be. The clock has started counting, and it's Rosella's prerogative to go when he desires to, and he goes right on the line. But look, wasn't Bolger completely awake to what was going on there? He went almost at the same time that Rosella decided he wanted to push the gas pedal, and through we go. Turn 1 looks fairly clean yet again. Everybody's through. And it's pretty much as it was, except for Higginson, who's lost it on his own, and he's been collected. He's been collected by Miles, he's been collected by Cracker, and by Parrott, and that's a big one, and that's a safety car.
Yeah, absolutely, and as you called it perfectly there, Higginson lost it on his own, and he just swung straight back across the track. We'll catch it on the replay here. So through turns 1 and 2, a little bit of contact with Alvarez, just got hung up on the curb a little bit. Yes, he did. Got hooked on the inside, and then it just rolled back across the track. Parrott had nowhere to go, Cracker had nowhere to go, Miles had nowhere to go, and it was contact for all of them. A big gaping hole in the front of that Lexus, and surely damage to a few of those cars there. So not quite the start we had in the first race. And a bit more carnage this time around. We'll see, I think, a few cars come into the pits as we have Luke Rosella with the field neutralised, and we'll see if the safety car actually pops out ahead of him this time.
Yeah, well, I think he slowed down a little bit this time. We can actually give a bit of a grab and see where the safety car is actually positioned. There it is, comes right out. So Rosella's done the right thing this time. Well done. He's come out and picked up leader. Now, importantly, the pits are currently closed.
And this has worked very well for Braxton Stancliffe. He basically gets a free kick back onto the tail. Also, check out Will Devonish, up 5 positions from the start. So he's gotten through on, well, all 4 of the cars that crashed, effectively.
Basically, yeah. He's
free.
He's directly ahead of Cracker on the road at the moment. There is Will Devonish in the number 27 for the Playboy Wildcat Playboy Ferrari. But you're right, he started off the back. I think Cameron Parrott's got to be the unluckiest person out of that lot. So Higginson, as you said, was on the curb and lost it. And then when he spun round, his rear as pendulum swung and basically wiped out Parrott right in the door on the side of the car, right? So Parrott was just there minding his own business, trying to stay wide, and there wasn't really anything he could do. He was basically just push the gas pedal and try and go through. If he didn't push the gas pedal and try and go through, he was going to T-bone Higginson coming back across the track.
Yeah, and then because of that impact with Parrott, it meant that the Higginsons all of a sudden stopped moving, and then the hole that was going to open up for Cracker didn't materialise, and he's gone straight to the front end of Higo as well. So, yeah, a bit of a pinball effect there, and I wouldn't be surprised to see all 4 of those guys come into the pits to take some damage repair as we come through to the second lap this time around.
Are there any takers? Yes, there is. Here comes Cam Parrott, and Cracker surprisingly continues on.
That is a surprise.
That's a very big surprise for me. I'm a bit unsure about that one, but Cam Parrott rolling down the lane. Here he comes. And there'll be tyres, I'd imagine. There will be, well, there shouldn't really need to be fuel, but there will be damage repair. But he's got nothing to worry about here, I think, or nothing to lose, I should say, because he was at the tail end of the field after being involved in the accident. So you may as well take the pain, get it over and done with, and just catch up to the back of the field and go from there. But yes, I'm a bit surprised that Cracker hasn't come into the pits. Maybe it's a bit of front end damage. Maybe it's something he feels he can live with. Maybe he's done all the due diligence and checked it all out. I mean, it's a bit of a funky model for the Lexus with how the bumper's missing and we can see the driver's feet, but that's beside the point. The point is he might have actually just done the math and worked out, okay, I can actually drive the car.
And maybe it's just aesthetic and the actual damage isn't nearly as much as it looks.
It looked quite severe when we were looking at it on the broadcast.
That's true. That is true. That is true. But I'm not sure if you can see on the broadcast screen, but I can see on my screen, it looks like the dive planes are still fairly intact. So it's one of those AMS sim racing things. It looks sometimes a lot worse than it is.
Yeah, and we've had this before as well. I'm not sure if you remember the TCC and the TCR championships that were held a couple of years ago. There was some really weird things where even at the slightest contact, some of those bumpers would actually come off those cars. And it was the same thing. It was all aesthetics. So we'll wait and see what the outcome of that is as we're going around again under safety car. So at least one more lap. Cracker coming to the lane this time. No, he continues on. And it doesn't look like there's any other takers on pit road either.
Not much more subdued start this time around, Nether.
A little bit more subdued. The turn 1, I guess, didn't deliver the action. Again, it was turn 3, and it was not through any sort of contact. It was just through Higginson losing it on his own. I'm actually surprised that Higginson has still continued on as well, because he took a pretty severe lick in both the rear boot lid from backing into Parrot and also from being T-boned by the Lexus of Cracker. So.
And Glenn Miles'
and
Ferrari
Glenn Miles'
as well.
Ferrari as well, which sort of came along on the scene. But by that time, Glenn had had a bit of time to actually hit the anchors. You can see there, look, there's the damage on the left-hand side of the Ferrari. You can see that door is completely caved in. Look, nice, clean, skin-looking door on that side, and you can see a big old ugly dent right at the... it's actually essentially right at the B-pillar.
Yeah, that wouldn't be pleasant in a real car, certainly.
There it is right there. Yeah, hopefully we'll be going back to some green flag running this time around. No guarantees, but we'll wait to see if the safety car peels off and we get underway here. So it's knocked a good chunk of time off this race.
Just AMS things, am I right? Let's see if the safety car comes in this time around.
Lights went out the last corner last time, and it is. So we're going back again. So 3 laps was all that we had to get the field under control. Will Devonish has had a fairly reasonable start. Braxton Stancliffe's been thrown a lifeline by that pit lane start. And it's a single file restart importantly. And Bolger needs to be careful here. Can't jump the start. He can't have overlap before the line. The restarts have all been pretty good tonight so far. And Bolger's awake yet again. Doesn't lose too much ground and doesn't lose out to Lewis Wedding on the run to the straight as well. Boak having a look down the inside. I saw in the background there as well, but he couldn't quite pull that off. He had a bit of a sneaky look at Turmo going into turn number 1, and he wasn't quite close enough to execute. Nothing up here at turn 4 now, so now he's just got to hold station. And then Alvarez is having a look at Foley in the background.
Look at the gap, though, that Rosella pulled through that opening chicane. It's already 0.8 of a second between himself and Steve Bolger, who's under immediate pressure from Lewis Wedding. So that's a great restart from Luke Rosella, not necessarily off the start, but certainly through that first complex of corners. This is a little battle pack now for 8th, 9th, 10th and 11th. Brendan Ross holding up Steve Warwick, Rhodey and Will Devonish. When's the last time we said that Rhodey was being held up by someone? That's awesome. Awesome for him to be in that tight battle again. But yeah, Rossi looking a bit vulnerable to the Aston Martin of Steve Warwick as we come through this fast chicane and into the final corner.
Yeah, I was a bit worried for Warwick there. He was a little bit narrow on the approach to the fast flip-flop, but managed to gather it up and press on with it. And now we're going to start to see some flying laps finally hit the boards.
It looked like the Braxton Stancliff had a moment through that fast chicane. He's dropped down. Will Devonish very deep under brakes. You won't see him in this shot because he's gone into the concrete runoff there. So he's lost a little bit of time.
Yeah, he lost a spot to Cracker in all of that as well. Here he is. And Higginson right on his rear hammer. So for Cracker and Higginson, the damage is not as bad as what they first thought, and they're actually holding station pretty well here.
And they've got an opportunity now to maybe try and munch into the back of Will Devonish, who, yeah, as I mentioned, just made that mistake into turn 1. So he's got, again, a lot of work to do if he wants to get back onto the tail of Steve Warwick and Brendan Ross.
On board with Rhodey now, heading down to fast flip-flop. Steve Warwick ahead, and then ahead of him, Brendan Ross. You can see Alvarez and Foley just disappearing around the corner. Actually, surprisingly, some fairly good lines and fairly nice deft little touch there for Rhodey through that last sequence of corners.
I'm just going to bring us up to the front. Sorry, Nether. Lewis Wedding was just having quite a look at Steve Bolger. He's the Porsche in a gravel rash sandwich at the moment, and he's looking very racy. Steve would say, Bolger was saying that that last section of the racetrack is where he feels he's the strongest compared to Porsche, but it looks like at least that lap around that Lewis Wedding was all over the rear wing of that McLaren on the main straight. This time around, though, you can't really see in the rear view of the Porsche, but Turbo's all over Lewis Wedding.
Oh,
and
mistake.
Wedding's run wide.
He has. It's gone a bit wide there. Is that even vulnerable to Turbo? It did, and it still does. Turbo won't be able to get this pass executed before the flip-flop, and Boak's with them as well. So being sucked into this now is Phil Boak in the 046 entry. Hold station through here, get your line right. Turbo doesn't send it up the inside, but he needs to try and stay close if he can, and put Wedding under some pressure here because it's allowing Bolger to get away a little bit. Turbo's not close enough for a run at turn 1 here, but importantly, he's now keeping Wedding busy.
Yeah, have a look at this last lap for Steve Bolger, an 8.7 versus Lewis Wedding, a 9.5. So a lot of time lost there by Lewis Wedding, and he's got, yeah, hands full of Turbo and Boak. It's something that we did just miss as well. Rhodey actually managed to get ahead of Steve Warwick in that little battle. I think maybe Warwick's made a bit of a mistake because it's now Rhodey heading up that little battle pack for 9th place.
Yeah, slow lap for Steve Warwick. It was in the middle sector actually. It was a full 2.5 tenths slower than Rhodey in sector 2. So Rhodey's managed to make that pass stick. Now sector 2 starts around about here and then runs all the way down to the final sequence of corners. So Rhodey's got his work cut out for him here because Warwick's right on his hammer. Then it's Cracker and then Devonish, and then Higginson and Parrott are still playing catch-up here.
It's a very close run thing actually at the moment between Rhodey and Warwick as they all fan out down this back straight.
A little bit of air going into the radiators there. Cool the brake ducts, cool the engine for a short period of time. Rhodey moves back across to the racing line here. Takes the right line through turn number 11. And then onwards to turn number 1. This isn't over. This battle, I think, is going to go on for quite some time here. Rhodey being very gentlemanly there, leaving plenty of room for Warwick, who came up on his inside quite late. In actual fact, I think to his detriment probably as well, gave up the spot.
Crisscross is on though, Nether. The crisscross is on. He's going to try and throw it down the inside. There's maybe just not that much room. There's a side-to-side contact between Warwick and Rhodey, and then Rhodey and Devonish. They all sneak out the other side. Is Devonish going to try and throw it down the inside? There's a little bit of a lock-up. There's more contact. They all managed to stay on the tarmac this time around.
Good driving by all of them there. There was a little bit of side-to-side contact. No wheel-to-wheel contact, thankfully, as well. But Rhodey sort of made himself into a bit of a problem there because he let Warwick through and then didn't quite get it, stopped for turn 4. Look at the speed Devonish carries through there. And he was on the marbles too. He was skating through the second to last corner, all in vain to try and stay with the Lexus so he could have a run down this front straight here.
Did I see a yellow flag pop up on your screen for a moment, Nether?
There was a very, very brief yellow flag up, and I'm not sure what it was for. It might have been for either somebody getting a little bit sideways or something going on. I'm looking to see. It might actually be for Brenton Foley, I think, or Alvarez. Maybe there was a little bit of a slow last sector for them.
Not sure on that one. I did see both Foley and Alvarez run wide at the first corner, but I don't think that would have been caused a yellow flag. So They're still in the mix for the tail end of the top 5.
In actual fact, Foley's gotten away from Alvarez now after that little moment between them running wide. He's actually made a net gain. Here he is on screen.
And if you just peek 2 or 3 car lengths ahead, something I caught was that Luke Rosella had a very slow final sector a few laps ago, a 10.6 last lap around, so he's actually not that far ahead of Steve Bolger, who again is not that far ahead of Lewis Wedding, who's not that far ahead of Turmo.
Now this little train's still going on here, so Bolger, Wedding's very, very close this time, and having to take some defensive lines here, even into turn 4, which is a bit of a surprise. That's dragging Turmo into this, that's dragging Phil Boak into this as well. Now, Rosella, I'm not sure if he's slowed his pace or if he's had a moment on the last lap, because him and Steve Bolger did identical lap times, and now in Sector 1, Rosella picks up his pace.
I think Rosella made a mistake at the last corner of lap 9, and that had the flow-on effect with a really slow first sector last lap around. So that's probably why the lap times have equalised out. But yeah, at the moment, this battle pack of 3 is going to become 4 any tick of the clock, with Boak stalking in the background.
Well, essentially it is 4 right now. Here is the onboard from Phil Boak, and he's following Turmo pretty closely onto the main straight here.
Just quickly while this is going on, we did lose Braxton Stancliffe. He had to lose through the final complex of corners and decided to exit out to the garage. So unfortunate for Braxton. Hopefully we'll see him back in a fortnight's time.
That actually may have been the cause of that yellow flag you were referring to there.
Quite possible.
Half distance gone, 11 laps completed. We're working lap 12 at the moment. And this is where the battle is at. This is where the real focus is at the moment. Nobody in this little group of 4 cars can afford to make a mistake right now. If you're at the front of the queue and you make a mistake, you're gone, and you're probably going to end up back with with Foley and Alvarez. If you're at the tail end of the queue, you'll, no matter how big or small a mistake, you'll never catch back up again, such as the pace at the moment.
And that's exactly right. Such is the pace at the moment. None of these guys have actually made a mistake this race so far, because they haven't been able to afford to. It's been high quality racemanship this whole time, and you know, they're nose to tail and their lap times are barely differing, and it's all very tightly wound. It's, you know, a moment from absolutely taking off here. It's just waiting for the spark to light the fire, so to speak.
Do you get the impression that maybe Wedding and perhaps Phil Boak are just biding their time a little bit in this one at the moment?
Maybe trying to save a bit more left side tyre.
Yeah, maybe just trying. Look, they're all driving fairly smoothly, even not taking as much curb through the last couple of corners as they have been in the first race. But as you said, saving a little bit of time, and you don't have to worry about fuel because it's not a fuel limiting race, it's going to be a tyre limiting race. But maybe just keeping a little bit in the reserve tank and just staying in touch some more until we get to maybe about the last 6 minutes or so, and then maybe just up the ante a little bit.
It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. It's very difficult to tell when you're in these tight sort of battle packs, because you know, you don't know how much any driver is pushing. You might say, well, you know, Wedding takes a bit of a wider line through turn 7, but maybe that takes just a little bit of a load off of that left side tyre and enables him to straighten up on the exit or something along those lines. So it's very hard to tell without, you know, being in the car and seeing the figures how much time tyre they're actually pulling apart here. But you know, if we look at the lap times, you know, 8.9s for the whole group last lap around. This time around, an 8.7 for Bolger. That was matched by Wedding, and then Turmo and Boak just a little bit off the pace. So maybe these top 2, Bolger and Wedding, are just starting to eke out a little bit of an advantage over Turmo and Boak. So I'm not sure that Turmo and Boak are saving anything. It's just that this pace here between Bolger and Wedding is quite hot at the moment.
Yeah, you can now see visually from the helicopter shot here the margin between Wedding and Turmo just started to grow ever so slightly. Now I think it's more out of the 2 that we're possibly looking to save something. I think it was Boak looking to save something maybe for over Turmo, and Wedding to save something to have over Bolger as the race gets towards its conclusion. Now where's Foley in all of this? He's started to make a little bit of ground, not a huge amount of ground on Phil Boak, but he is starting to just take little bits here and there. That being said, it went the other way on the previous lap, but it was only by a 10th. It wasn't too much more. But now Turmo's caught back up a little bit here.
And Boak's had a very poor middle sector that lap around. Let's have a look at lap times again. 9.8, 9.8, sorry, 8.9, 8.9, 8.7. So Turmo just pulled back 2/10 and he's, tacked back onto the tail end of this leading pair. So it's beautiful how this just sort of ebbs and flows constantly.
At the moment, that's essentially what it is. It's just the ebb and flow, and it's good to see the drivers, I guess, concentrating at 100% here. Nice and smooth on the wheel. There's no mistakes from any of this top group at the moment in second, third and fourth. They're all just waiting for somebody to make a bad mistake. Wedding's turning the screws. He's trying to put the pressure on. Bolger's just basically looking ahead, hitting his marks, not looking in his rearview mirror too much. And Turmo, at the moment, is in the tow, and he's just sitting back there doing exactly what the cars in front are doing. Hitting your apexes, hitting your braking spots, not doing anything too untoward, not taking any corners too aggressively or too fast, and just buying himself to a ticket to the final stanza.
It's really interesting. I was just watching the helicopter shot of seeing the differences in how the McLarens and the Porsches took those final complex of corners. It was almost as if Turmo and Bolger were fixed in place and the Porsche kind of moved between them, where it was faster on the entry and then a little bit slower on the mid-corner, but then punched out on the exit. So it's interesting to see how these little differences affect maybe how the drivers are thinking about where they've got an advantage compared to those around them, or where they might be looking to set up a move, whether or not the door will open in the middle of the corner and Wedding can put his Porsche in a place where Bolger can't defend, or whether or not the door never opens and Wedding has to go around the long way, or something along those lines. It's really interesting to sort of see how these little minute differences will play into this bigger picture, as we've got less than 10 minutes left in this race.
Yeah, we have only got 10 minutes or so left in this race here.
Welcome, Bagsy.
And Bagsy has finally actually managed to join us for this one. So he's, I guess, watching along, and finally workers agree with him on this one. So I'm not sure how far caught up you are, Bagsy, but what's your read on this one so far?
I just did a quick fast forward through race 2 while I was waiting for Automobilista to load. And it doesn't look like anyone's going to touch Rosella so far, but I feel like Wedding's going to stick up
Wedding's down the inside.
Like right now.
Yep. Oh, and probably would have been pinged for a track violation, I would have thought there as well. He was all four wheels over the curb.
There was so much that happened. Firstly, Wedding had that moment you mentioned, but Bolger also had a moment on the brakes. Turmo tried to take the opportunity, spun up the wheels, and he was around in a flash.
Well, let's have a look and see what happened to Turmo on that one, because probably worthy that we have a look, because it was, you're right, Wedding, the ever opportunist, took the line. There he is, going down the inside there, and I thought that would probably end up being a track cut, but you're right, Bolger had to get out of the throttle to wait, and then, just a bit too aggressive and a little bit too happy on the loud pedal, spun it up, veered into his teammate, loses the spot to Phil Boat. And this is what I was saying just a few moments ago here, gentlemen, is that if you're on the tail end of that group and you make a mistake, you're never going to catch back up.
Yeah, we've got only 8 minutes left of this race, and now Phil Boak's in the midst of this battle, and not too far behind as well is Brenton Foley. So it's interest now for the PBF guys to see if they can get something a little more out of this.
And while we haven't been keeping tabs on it in the broadcast, there is a teams championship to play for here, and there are 3 teams fighting this one out. So we will have to take a look at that probably after this round is over, when we bring up the broadcast for next time out, 2 weeks from now, to see.
Glenn Miles is retired as well.
Oh, that's a shame for that.
Shame he's retired on his return, actually, because that's it's good to see him back out there, but unfortunately something's happened to the number 69 Ferrari.
So would I be correct in saying that Luke Rosella dominated in the first race as well?
He did until he made a mistake.
That's the only thing that happened at that point. Yeah, he made a mistake at the last couple of corners and threw away what was pretty much a certain win at that point, and that was after some safety car intervention too. So there was unfortunately no way back from that one. This battle's now started to get quite energised here. I want to look at the lap times here, because it doesn't look like Bolger's that far in arrears here. So Wedding flashed across the line in a, where are we here, waiting for the live time to update, 108.8, Bolger 109.1, and then Boak 9.2, Turmo an 8.7, and Foley an 8.8.
So Turmo looks to have the best sort of pace out of that group at the moment, just based on that 1 lap time alone. But that was something I noticed as well in that little patch of before that little bit of contact, is that Turmo seems to just have maybe 1 or 2 moments around the track where he seems to just find something, but then conversely he can also have 1 or 2 moments where he will lose something. He's right on the tail of Phil Boak at the moment as we come down the back straight, and you can't even see the McLaren behind the big cockpit of the Mercedes as they come towards the final section of the track.
Seem to be getting much better drive out the corners, Turmo. Just from the brief times I've been able to see, but there's just not enough straight for him to take advantage of it.
That is one of the features of this little Portland circuit. That time around a 9 flat for Turmo versus a 9-1 for Boak. And in fact, he lost a lot in that final sector, just getting caught up in that fast chicane. Once again, he's right on the rear wing of the Mercedes, but not quite close enough to affect the pass into this triple apex right-hander.
I'll say it's one of the disadvantages of the Portland circuit. Well, it's very fun to drive, especially when you get it right. There's not many super hard braking zones apart from turn 1 where you can really...
Oh, contact! Sorry, gentlemen, there's been some contact. I was having a look at Rhodey trying to hold down 10th place there. He was holding off Brendan Ross. There's been some pretty substantial contact going in the braking zone at 1, and Cracker, it nearly made it an aeroplane crash.
Yeah, I was watching that on your broadcast screen as well, Nether, and that was quite a moment as they headed into the first corner. It looked like Ross, we'll see it on the replay here, he just missed his braking point. Bang! Look at that. Oh, and Cracker just managed to find the hole.
Whoa, that could have... I'm curious as to why Cracker didn't just brake for the corner. Probably would have been fine, but... that was, yeah, almost incredibly bad.
What's happened there, I think, is Brendan Ross, as he's been recovering, he's definitely got some car pace, but he left the jink to the right to make the passing move a little bit too late.
Oh, sorry, I saw a yellow flag. I thought we might have been going to safety car. I was trying to figure out where the yellow flag might have come from. Higginson? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, he's had a couple of spins in the last couple of laps as well.
I just saw it flash for a moment and thought we might be in for a grandstand safety car, but not to be as of yet. This battle is still quite energized. Looks like Turmo gets off of turn 7 really, really nicely, but just gets a bit strangled here. You can see he's just had to back off through this fast chicane to make sure that he's not unsettled by the Mercedes ahead as they come past Nathan Higginson this time around. Maybe with only a few laps left, maybe Turmo needs to figure out how we can use that pace out of 7 to affect the pass through turn 9. Does he have to give himself a bit more of a gap, or does he need to be closer through turn 6? He's got to think his way around Phil Boak, not just try and drive his way around Phil Boak.
Brett Foley off the back here is not making huge inroads. It's only a 10th here and a 10th there, so he really could be right up there to battle. Oh, he's just had a bit of an awkward moment hitting the curb there, so he's not making the progress that he wants to make, and nor with only a couple of minutes left is he going to be really featuring in this battle.
Well, I think, you know, being not even a part of this race evening until the start of race 2, I think he'll be quite happy to just sit back and maybe pick up all the pieces of a potential flashpoint ahead of him as Bolger. Oh, Boak's made a mistake into the final complex of corners, and he just manages to pull it up, but he's going to be vulnerable this time. Is he? No, he gets a great drive off of that final corner. He almost did a Luke Rosella in that final section of the track.
Turmo's still got eyes on him though, so this is still important. There's still going to be at least 3 laps to run here, if not 4.
Very, very close. What was that last lap around? A 10 flat for Phil Boak, and it was all in that last sector. And in fact, had Turmo not been right underneath the rear wing, he probably would have gotten past Boak in that corner. He's right there, and this is where we've said Turmo's been strong through turn 7 and on the out exit of turn 7. So Does he get the run this time? Oh, yes, he does. He's gaining on the Mercedes already. He swings out to the outside, but it's on the marbles there. Boak moves to cover, and then Turmo can't really do anything with his pace.
Yes. He doesn't have the top speed. I feel like he's got a bit more downforce on the car. He's just not able to get at the end of the straight when the important time for the overtake is. He just doesn't have the juice.
Exactly, and in fact, Foley's actually bought right back into this with that little mistake from Boak, compressing the group. Now let's look at these lap times once again. 9.6 for Turmo, and a 9.4 for Boak, and 8.8 for Foley. He's right on the tail of Turmo now. He's got to look out both ends.
Here is a 0.74, and you can see now the gap visually is much, much smaller. So right now, there's 22 seconds left on this race clock. Now, where our race leader is, he is coming up to the final sequence of corners now. So I dare say we're going to end up where we are. We're going to end up with 25 laps yet again, which is the same distance that we had in race number 1. Although this time, they don't, Loose Sim Sport Porsches don't have to milk the clock to the line to time it to absolute perfection. He's going to have plenty of time in hand here. White flag will be out, and Rosella's on his way for the last lap. But importantly, back to this battle group for the last spot on the roster. Bolger's now starting to get away.
I think the pressure from behind has meant that Boakes has spent more time looking in his rearview mirrors than he's been looking ahead. Oh, a big dive from Foley into turn 1, and Turmo has to bail out of it. Turmo wasn't going to be able to make the corner, or rather there was going to be contact, and that's let Foley through. He's let Foley have that one, which is not a decision I would have made.
Nope, it's last lap, play on, and then let the stewards worry about it later. Let's see, we actually didn't quite catch that one as it was unfolding. Jeez, Foley was a long way back. I'm actually just looking at this now. How far back was he? Look at him. He's come from an awful long way back.
Had everything locked up as well, and he wasn't going to make the corner without making contact with Turmo. So, yeah, it's an interesting decision from Turmo, but that's taken the heat off of Boak immediately. There's a 2-second gap now that Boak's got behind him, so
there it is.
That's no worry for him.
Race winner gets to the line here, Luke Rosella. So he didn't win the first one, but he makes up for it in race number 2. Lewis Wedding's going to get home for second here. In actual fact, there's the third of the Loose Sim Sport Porsches in the middle there is Brendan Ross. He's actually gone a lap down because of the contact with Rhodey earlier on.
Oh,
Across the line, I'm not sure who actually got that there.
it was
Foley's just beaten Turmo.
He has.
a 1,000th of a second. I saw that as well, Bagsy. How is that for tight on the end of the race? Incredible.
Let's bring that one up and have a look, because it's out of the last corner here. We're just going to wind it back a touch and bring it through. So here we go. So Foley was ultra slow and ultra defensive, and it actually almost cost him here. Have a look at that. So he tightened up the line to try and head off Turmo, but Turmo just put his foot down, got to the line, and
yeah.
let's slow that down. Have a look at that, because there's nothing in that. Look at that, right there.
It was 1,000th of a second.
I'll be honest, I think it looks like, go across the line there, that Turmo might have been ahead. The timing may have been slightly incorrect. So can we roll back and hit the top-down view, potentially?
Well, I think we might bring that up while we're off air and have a little bit of a look and see what's happened there, because, yeah, that's a bit of a weird one, I think.
To round out the field, Steve Warwick finished in 7th, Christian Alvarez a second behind in 8th, ahead of Will Devonish, Cameron Parrott in 10th place, Cracker finished in 11th, Rhodey in 12th, and Brendan Ross, as we saw, a lap down. Non-finishers were Nathan Higginson, Glenn Miles, and Braxton Stancliffe. A more tension-filled race than the action-packed extravaganza of the first one, but certainly that battle pack for the tail end of the podium kept us intrigued all the way through, Nether.
Here you go, Bagsy. You wanted to see it, and I'm with you on this one. I got a funny feeling that one might be swinging the other way.
That is I believe, mistake with the timing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Looking even a fairway back from the line, the nose of Turmo is still ahead of Foley.
I reckon we can't unfortunately stop the replay there, but To quote old Darrell Waltrip from NASCAR, I think he's won that by a 16th of an inch.
That's mighty close. Jeez. Wow, fair play.
Very, very fair play. I think that one's going to go to the stewards' room. I think that Termo probably has a right to feel like he's been robbed out of 5th place there, because from the top-down view, to me, that looks like he's home and hosed.
Well, I guess that's one for the stewards, and I mean, hey, after tonight's action, if that's the only thing that goes to the stewards, well then, blimey, that I'm totally okay with that, because that first race was an absolute mess in the best way possible. The second one was a bit more controlled, a bit more contained, but still very, very good racing throughout. Glad you could join us for the end of that, Bagsy.
Yeah, no, I'm glad I was able to make the end. Also, it looks like the reason that Foley didn't have the best final corner there is he got right up on the curb and started losing the rear a bit, and he had a couple of bites at it to get it going in a straight line, which is what gave Termo the ability to get up alongside him. But yeah, that's as close as you'll see, basically. Anyway, I mean, on the timing, our live asrleague.liveraces.com, it says Foley and then Termo plus 0.0.
Yeah, I'm looking at some comments in the live chat here, just thinking, as Stair's saying, looks like the transponder in the McLaren might be a long way back, but I've got a funny feeling it'll be to do with the way the model's actually constructed as well. But we'll and like it's like we were talking about before, you have like a bumper that goes a certain distance, and there is a little bit of a splitter on the front of the McLaren as well. But we'll see what happens. It's a little bit of a weird one. I mean, we're having a bit of fun with it, looking at it, going, "Oh no, look, someone was ahead." But we'll see. We'll probably have a bit more of a harder look at the track and the timing boom and where everything is as well. But it'll be really, really unusual to see something like that overturned. But we had a bit of fun with it, I think, while it lasted.
Absolutely, and Stairs as well knows all too well the folly of the close finishes. He was showing me a few of his greatest hits during the week, including one at Adelaide where I think a car ran out of fuel in the last lap and was
don't remind me about Corey Ott in 2018. That's the one of concern. I broadcasted that race. That was I think my second GT3 race I'd ever broadcasted for ASR, and yeah, I remember that one.
He remembers that one well as well.
He remembers that one well. He was in.
Was it the second or was it the first one?
No, the first one we did. The first race we did was it was actually Imola in that year, 2018, and then the second race I broadcast, which was the third round of the championship because we missed the first round when we joined, was to do with was Adelaide. It was an Adelaide round, and Stairs I think was actually driving in that one. I was commentating that one, and
he was. Yeah,
it was a very, very entertaining race. Yeah. Car that basically touched the line but couldn't quite get across the line and wasn't classified as a result. So one of those weird and wonderful things. We'll move on to podium interviews for race number 2. Now, unfortunately, with Luke Rosella and his voice not feeling up to it, we're going to give him a miss here. But let's move on to Lewis Wedding for second place here, gentlemen.
Yeah, Lewis, and a double podium for yourself and another one too for Lou Simsport. A bit of a tense race for you in that battle pack. Just take us through the race from your perspective.
Yeah, it was pretty entertaining race. It's a bit of I'd say a bit of a chess match between myself and Steve there. I was faster in certain places of the track, but couldn't quite there weren't any places where you could really make a pass. So as long as he nailed the last corner, essentially I couldn't pass him, which he did pretty much every lap. And then I started getting closer and closer to him. I don't know if he's had tires going off or maybe underfueled it or something, but he was starting to struggle a bit. And then eventually he made that slight mistake. I was already close to him coming in the final corner with about just under 10 minutes to go, and got the run. And because I'd sort of feigned making a move a couple of times beforehand, he went defensive a lap or two earlier, and I just stayed to the outside, just biding my time. And then on this particular lap where I did make the move, I don't think he so much expected it, or maybe he's letting me go. I don't know, but I just decided it's close enough that time, and he wasn't defending it, so I just stuck it up there. Because I couldn't really see the track, I bounced over the curb and onto the grass. So I sort of realised afterwards that I may have gained an advantage by going off the circuit. So after the chicane, I actually backed off and slowed down, but something happened behind with Turmo and Steve, and Steve was slowing down and didn't go back by, and I didn't want to sit there and wait for all the others to go back by again, so I took off. So I don't know what's going to happen with that, but yeah, the first 20 minutes of that race were really fun, and yeah, it's been a really good round. Definitely the best I've driven in a long time.
Yeah, and going along with your win in race one and great results for the team as well. That must feel like a good night's work.
Yeah, it certainly does, because this is probably the first season in quite a while that I've actually put it. I've actually been doing a number of laps in the lead up to each round to sort of try and get somewhere. And this season I've wanted to. I just wanted one more win, and thankfully I got that in that first race. And well, Luke was too strong, but I don't think there's not really too many out there that are better than him in the Automobilista platform. So the fact I was so close in both those races, I can certainly hang my hat on. But yeah, certainly enjoyable, and yeah, hopefully the rest of the season can be just as competitive.
Campo Grande next time out. Have you been at the track before? Have you raced anything there? What's your thoughts on the circuit?
I think I've done maybe a couple test night races in like some other cars. I think maybe some messing around with the touring cars that we've done and ran over the years, but I don't think I've actually properly raced it. So unless we did a GT3 test night yonks ago, I don't know. But yeah, that's going to be a very interesting race, because it's not the most complicated circuit outside of maybe one or two corners, and it's not a track that too many people have really done any serious racing on. So it's going to be a bit of I reckon, a bit of a curveball, and we may. Yeah, we may see some interesting results there.
Or maybe we'll see another win for yourself, Lewis. Congratulations on your win and second place tonight, and overall great result for Lou Simsport. And I think that in fact gives you the round if we're doing round points. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Third place rather in that second race was Steve Bolger to go with his second place in race one. Steve, congratulations. Held on for a long time against Lewis, and then there was just that moment as Lewis passed you, which kind of set everything off. How do you withstand that sort of pressure for that length of time without making a mistake?
Clearly, I didn't.
Well, you were doing well. You're doing well for a good 20 minutes there.
It felt like a long 20 minutes. No, I think Lewis summed it up pretty well. I think he had the raw pace, but there was only that one spot on the track where you could really make a clean pass. And I knew if I got out of the last corner, okay, I was all right there. And on that occasion, I didn't, and then I didn't defend it. So I left the door wide open for him. So it was pretty inevitable. So I was a bit annoyed with myself afterwards. But he made a clean pass. I was fine. I didn't think he was any need to redress. So, I caught up with Turmo because I grabbed neutral in there. So Turmo's gone into the back of me, unfortunately for him. And that's cost him a couple of spaces, or at least one, depending on the transponder issue. No, it was a good fun race.
And it looked like both you and Turmo had quite a lot of pace tonight. Is that a good sign for the rest of the season? Is that something you can carry through?
I think it's pretty track dependent. So the McLaren really has good apex speed in the second, third, fourth gear corners. So the first sector was really good, and as I said before, there's no real long straights. So I didn't lose too much on the straights. Top speed's a bit weak. So on some tracks, I think it'll be good. Others, it might be a bit of a challenge.
Well, you certainly made the best of the pace in the McLaren tonight, taking it all the way up to the Lucim Sport double. Great results from you with your double podium. That must feel like a good reward for your night's work.
Yeah, it was really good to be competitive. Montreal was a bit disappointing all around, so I did a few more laps this time and played with the setup. So yeah, it was a good night.
Fantastic. Congratulations, Steve, and all the best for the rest of the season.
Thanks, mate.
That was Steve Bolger from third and Lewis Wedding from second place tonight. And it's fair to say, guys, that the Portland experiment, it worked. It worked well.
Yeah, from my point of view, it's a bit of an unusual track that we sort of looked at when the calendar was put together and thought, what's going to spice the racing up? So the 2 sprint rounds, you've got the complete polar opposites. You've got a really, really short track in Portland, and then you've got a really long track at the end of the series in Spa. And then all the other tracks in between are a little bit intermediate. So you've got I think it's this 90-minute experiment going around Hockenheimring. We've got 70 minutes Campo Grande, and then on the other end of the scale, you have the 70-minute blast that was Watkins Glen around a short circuit. So a lot of laps in a really short sort of track in a big space of time. So it's got a lot of people thinking about how they attack certain circuits, and you've got to have your wits about you this year. I think that's probably what inspires me the most about the series. Is it's not an easy feat this year.
Yeah, absolutely. It's certainly, well, of course, besides the Lewis Sim Sport Porsches, which have just had pace everywhere so far, it's certainly thrown the cat amongst the pigeons in that mid pack, and we've seen so many people show strength. The PBS guys, the Gravel Rash McLarens, the Aston Martins were doing quite well tonight as well. And those mid pack battles as well. I think the fact that the middle of the pack is so closely matched, and there's such a fine margin between everyone from Alvarez down to Rhodey is really quite remarkable, and it really energizes the middle parts of the race.
Yeah, and those battles in the middle of the field this week were very entertaining for me as well, having a look at them all and seeing everybody, even Rhodey, getting right into the thick of the action. I was genuinely shocked seeing him mix it up with it, but that's good. I think there's a few people that have found, I guess, willing dance partners that they're happy to battle with and fight on with, and I look forward to seeing what they're up to for the rest of the season. I know Bagsy's probably got to go and catch up with a fair bit of this, and so he's all up to speed for the next one, but from what you saw out of the few minutes of racing you did see tonight, Bagsy, what do you read into it?
It does seem like Luke Rosella is the man to beat still. He's very much on the pace, and even feeling unwell. Clearly, that doesn't slow him down too much. It just means he only won by about 10 seconds instead of 20 or 30. So now he's done quite well. Also, as Floody can attest to, I've while interviews are going on, I learnt more about giving way to buses as well.
Yes, indeed. We're making responsible decisions.
Yes, we do. We make responsible decisions here and everywhere we go. And you guys can make a responsible decision, because in 2 weeks we'll be back again for the next round at Campo Grande. So until then, please drive safely, everybody, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.